Chapter 1, Reincarnation. Jacob Williams felt the weight of the world literally crash down on him. One moment, he was walking past a construction site, heading to a meeting he was already late for. The next moment, everything turned into chaos. He heard the sound of collapsing metal and breaking glass, followed by searing pain as a steel beam came crashing down on him. The world went black. Jacob's first thought after waking up was that the afterlife smelled surprisingly like freshly brewed coffee. He opened his eyes and blinked a few times, trying to focus. He was sitting in a cozy little coffee shop, the kind of place you might find on a postcard, with soft lighting and the aroma of roasting beans in the air. It was calming. Too calming. What the hell just happened? Am I dead? Jacob muttered to himself, rubbing his temple while looking around. More like in between, a voice chimed in. Jacob looked up and froze. Sitting across from him at the small wooden table was none other than Ryan Reynolds. Or at least, someone who looked exactly like him, down to the signature smirk. He was casually sipping a cup of coffee as if this were the most normal thing in the world. Ryan Reynolds? Jacob asked, bewildered. The man chuckled. Close enough. I go by many names, but today you can call me Ryan if it makes things easier. Okay. Ryan. Jacob hesitated. Where exactly am I? Welcome to Limbo, my friend. The place between life and death. Some call it purgatory, others call it a waiting room with bad coffee, but I assure you, our coffee is top-notch. Ryan took another sip of his drink, clearly enjoying the confusion on Jacob's face. So, am I dead or? Jacob trailed off, unsure of how to finish the question. Ryan shrugged. Technically, yes. You got squished pretty bad back there. But here's the thing, I'm in a good mood today. And when I'm in a good mood, I like to do nice things for people. Like giving second chances. Second chances? Exactly. Ryan leaned back in his chair, looking quite comfortable. I'm what you'd call a random omnipotent being, or Rob for short. I get bored easily, so I like to pluck people out of their sad little situations and offer them a new life. In another world, with a little extra spice. Jacob's head was spinning. So you're telling me that you're some kind of god, and you're offering me a second life? Bingo! Ryan said, pointing at him like a game show host. But there's a catch. You only get one wish. Choose wisely. Jacob sat back, trying to process everything. It all sounded like some kind of weird dream, but everything felt too real. If this was a dream, it was incredibly detailed. A wish. A second life. In a different world. He couldn't help but think about all the stories he had read, those reincarnation tales, the Isekai adventures where the protagonist gets a chance to live a better life, armed with powerful abilities. What kind of world would I end up in? Jacob asked cautiously. Ryan raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued by the question. You tell me. The choice is yours. Any world, any universe, any timeline. You're the one in the driver's seat here. Jacob thought for a moment, letting the idea sink in. A new world. A new life. This was his chance to escape the monotonous grind of his previous existence, to do something extraordinary. And he knew exactly where he wanted to go. All right, Jacob said, taking a deep breath. I want to be reincarnated in the world of the magicians. Ryan's eyes twinkled with amusement. Good choice. Magic, danger, all the fun stuff. And what about your wish? What powers do you want? Keep in mind, once you make the wish, there's no going back. Jacob leaned forward, his heart pounding with excitement. I want the powers of Kai Parker from the Vampire Diaries, but without the sociopathic tendencies. And I want to be a heretic, a vampire witch hybrid, plus if it's possible I would like the vamp part to be an original, so, an original heretic. All the power, none of the madness. Ryan whistled, clearly impressed. Now that's a power set. You sure you can handle it? Jacob nodded firmly. Yeah, I think so, but add in Elijah's control over his hunger. I want to be there at the start of the plot or a little bit after too. I want to be ready for whatever comes my way. Ryan grinned, his smile mischievous. I like your style, Jacob. You're ambitious. All right, you've got your wish. But remember, power comes with responsibility and consequences. The world of the magicians isn't a place for the faint of heart. You'll need to be careful, or you could end up worse off than before. Jacob's excitement grew. I understand. But I'm ready. Anything's better than what I had before. Ryan raised his cup in a mock toast. To second chances, then. And to making the most of them. The world around Jacob began to blur as if it were being painted over with new colors and shapes. The coffee shop faded away, and Ryan's voice echoed in the distance, growing fainter by the second. Good luck, Jacob. Or should I say, Kai Parker. Jacob no, Kai Parker woke up in a dim room. Light filtered through the dusty blinds of his new apartment. The scent of old books, burnt-out candles, and something vaguely metallic hung in the air. He sat up slowly, feeling an intoxicating surge of energy thrumming through his body, the body of an original. It was unlike anything he had ever felt before. The weight of his new identity, his new powers, settled on him. Holy shit! I'm actually Kai Parker, he thought in disbelief as he stood up to look in the mirror across his room, a smirk creeping onto his face. His fingers tingled with raw energy, a mix of vampiric side and magical power. It was almost overwhelming, but in the best possible way. Standing up, he took in his surroundings. The apartment was small and cluttered, filled with books, magical trinkets, and scattered papers. Feels like a scene straight out of some witch's lair, he mused. But this was his now. His sanctuary. His domain. Trying to get a feel of what he could now do, he looked at a candle, then held up his hand and thought, Phosmatos incendia. The nearby candle flickered to life with ease. Pyrokinesis, child's play, he thought, watching the fire dance on the wick. The flame flickered in his eyes, relishing the power that now coursed through him. He tried it again, this time without the spell, simply willing the flame into existence. It worked just as smoothly. He chuckled, well. Would you look at that? Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 2, Julia. As he moved through the room, his mind buzzed with the knowledge he had inherited as memories started flowing into his brain with a slight headache. Kai Parker's magical expertise was now his, and it was a lot to take in. He could feel the spells etched into his brain like muscle memory. The invisibility spell, for instance. It was all about focus and intent, bending the light around his body until he simply disappeared. Let's try that, shall we? He closed his eyes, focused and thought, Invisic. When he opened them again, he was still there. Okay, that's weird. But when he looked into the mirror, he was gone, completely invisible, even to himself in the mirror. He laughed, feeling the thrill of the cloaking spell work so perfectly. The sensation sent a shiver down his spine. This is just too easy, he thought, letting the invisibility drop as he turned his attention to a dusty book on the table. With a casual flick of his wrist, the book floated into the air, then dropped and again for over 2 minutes before he finally got the hang of it. The book spun lazily before landing in his hand. Telekinesis felt natural now, like an extension of his own body, or an extra hand. Just think it, and it happens. I could get used to this. He glanced at a pen on the table and thought, Motus. The pen flew across the room and embedded itself into the wall close to the door. He tried again without thinking the spell, just willing it into motion. The pen moved, but with more effort. So the spell makes it stronger, he theorized, feeling giddy from the power surging through him. But it wasn't just the magic. The vampire part of him was buzzing with energy too. His enhanced senses kicked in the faint heartbeat of a rat scurrying in the walls, the rustling of leaves outside, even the distant hum of traffic blocks away. Everything was sharper and more vivid now. Okay, then that's enough witchy stuff, let's try vamp powers, shall we? Testing his speed, he zipped across the room in a blur, laughing as the adrenaline surged. Oh, he was strong, fast, and, most importantly, powerful. Holy shit, so this is the heightened emotion that comes with being a vamp. What really made him special now though, was his ability to siphon. Normally, siphoners couldn't generate their own magic, but as a vampire, an original at that, he could siphon the energy from his own vampiric nature, using it as a limitless source of power. He extended his hand and focused on the magic within him, drawing it out like water from a well. The sensation was intoxicating, a heady mix of control and limitless potential. An endless battery. I could do this all day, he thought with a grin, feeling the magic flow through him. This feels so real right now, would be a shame if it's all a dream. After a while, the initial excitement began to settle, and Kai started thinking more clearly. The world he was in now, the magicians, was nothing like his old one, which had little or even none and was different from the TVD-verse as well. The magic here is different, richer, more complex, and weird according to the show. He could sense it in the air, like a constant hum, a river of power that flowed all around him. All he had to do was reach out and siphon it. This must be the magic from the wellspring that flows into all worlds, he thought, intrigued by its presence. He experimented with the ambient magic, drawing it in with just a thought. It was different from the magic in the Vampire Diaries, where spells were often instinctual or tied to specific rituals. Here, magic required precision, gestures, incantations, and an art form that felt both more refined and more constrained. Gesture magic. He thought, trying out a few basic hand movements he'd seen the characters use in the show. The results were immediate, but the process felt slower, more deliberate than the raw, instinctive magic he was used to. It's like trying to paint a masterpiece with a brush when I could just splash the paint and be done with it. Still, there was potential here. Combining the raw, unrefined power of his Vampire Diaries magic with the complexity of the magicians could make him truly unstoppable. The thought made him smile, a dark, predatory smile that would have made a certain hybrid proud. He was going to have fun in this world. As he paced the room, Kai considered his next move. He was ready to start exploring this new world, to learn its secrets, and to bend them to his will. But he had to be smart about it. Power was one thing, but survival in a world like this required more than just brute force, and besides, there are literal gods here he had to look out for, as well as other supernatural creatures. He took a deep breath, letting the power inside him settle. The world outside was waiting, and he intended to make the most of his second chance. Right then, he thought, a grin spreading across his face. First things first. How about a little snack, a snatch, eat and erase? Blurring around the apartment, Kai cleaned up quickly before heading out. The streets of New York was, well, busy and full of life and people who had their faces buried in their phones, but what caught his attention was the magic. It was everywhere, in the air, in the people, in the very fabric of the city. Walking among the crowds, he marveled at how alive the world felt here compared to when he was a human. His vampiric senses flared to life, sharpening everything around him. He could hear the heartbeats of people blocks away as the blood pulses through their veins. The sound filled his ears, each rhythmic thump drawing his focus. Then, suddenly, the hunger hit him. It clawed at his throat and twisted in his stomach, an insatiable craving that seemed to take over his entire being. His vision blurred for a moment before sharpening again, this time with a darker tint. He could feel his eyes change, his sclera turning black, his iris shifting to a deep, predatory red. Black veins throbbed beneath the skin of his face, pulsing with his growing hunger. Shit, this hunger is unreal, fuck, he thought, clenching his fists as he tried to control the urge. He took a deep breath, but that only made things worse. The scent of blood filled his senses, rich and tantalizing. The humans walking around him suddenly seemed like nothing more than walking blood bags, their lives fragile and so easy to take. His throat burned. The predator inside was screaming to be let loose, to sink his fangs into the nearest throat and drink deeply. It was then that he noticed her. Standing at the corner, casually leaning against a wall and smoking a cigarette, was a woman. Her presence was different, stronger somehow. As she turned around, Kai's eyes widened in surprise as his body started to calm down, but by boy, due to Elijah's control he had asked for, but the hunger was still there. Hey! That's surprisingly quick, he thought, recognizing her instantly. The woman was Julia Wicker, the powerful, incredibly hot and complicated magician from The Magicians. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 3, First Taste. She seemed to be waiting for someone, her expression distant and thoughtful. But to Kai, she was more than just another person on the street. No, she was an opportunity. The hunger clawed at him, but he forced himself to stay in control. This was Julia Wicker, and if he played his cards right, she could be more useful than just a quick meal. Kai's instincts screamed at him to attack, but his mind, sharpened by both Kai Parker's cunning and his Elijah's willpower, held him back. This world was full of possibilities, and he wasn't about to squander his second chance by giving in to the hunger, at least, not yet. From his position across the street, Kai watched as a man approached Julia. The guy had that boring preppy look, clean haircut, sweater over a collared shirt, the kind of face you'd expect to see teaching an intro philosophy class or waiting in line at Whole Foods. Julia turned as he walked up, casually flicking her cigarette to the ground and crushing it beneath her boot. "Hey," the guy said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. "You ready?" Julia asked, brushing some hair behind her ear. "QS waiting. We've got that study session." "So, that's James," Kai mused, studying their interaction. "The boyfriend. The mundane and the placeholder." He leaned casually against a lamppost, trying his best to ignore the hunger ravaging his stomach, ears tuned in like a radio dialed to their frequency. Their conversation was mostly light mentions of classes, Quentin being weird about his card magic tricks again, the usual small talk. Julia seemed a little distracted, though, and a little tense. Something in her body language told Kai she was holding back. She wasn't as relaxed with James as she pretended to be, something most would notice unless they have heightened senses. Interesting. As the two turned to leave, Kai blurred past them with vampiric speed, just enough to beat them to the next corner and casually bump into them. "Whoa!" James flinched as they collided. Julia stepped back, blinking. "Oh, sorry about that," Kai said smoothly, steadying himself. "Wasn't watching where I was going." No, we weren't either," Julia replied quickly. "All good." Kai's eyes locked onto hers for a second longer than necessary. "Hey, don't I know you from somewhere?" Julia's brow furrowed, cautious now. I don't think so." Kai laughed, stepping back with a grin. "Sorry, my head's all clouded up. Long night." "My mistake." He gave a slight nod, offered them both a polite smile, and slipped past them. As he walked away, he could feel Julia's eyes still on his back, but he didn't look. He didn't have to. Behind him, James turned to her and asked, "Do you know him?" Julia shook her head, frowning a little. "No, I think he just confused me with someone else." They kept walking, but a second later, Julia flinched and reached up to her neck. "Ow, what the fuck?" James stopped. "What? What's wrong?" She rubbed the spot and shrugged. "Nothing. Must have been a bug or something." Across the street, Kai stood hidden behind a wall, smirking as he twirled a single brunette strand of hair between his fingers. He tucked it carefully into his coat pocket. A little souvenir. He watched them disappear around the corner, when suddenly, wham, someone stumbled into him from the side. Whoa, shit sorry, a girl slurred, grabbing his jacket to keep from falling. Her breath reeked of vodka and something fruity. I wasn't even, oh my god, I am so drunk. Kai caught her effortlessly, his reflexes automatic. She was young, early 20s, red-faced, and swaying on her feet. You don't say, he replied dryly, one brow arched. His eyes flicked toward the street. No one was paying attention. Then an idea hit him. He tilted her chin up gently, meeting her glassy gaze. Hey, look at me. Her eyes tried to focus. You're really, like, handsome. Yeah, I get that a lot, he said flatly, staring deep into her eyes. You're not afraid. You're going to stand still and shut up for a second. Nothing happened. She giggled. Wait, is this, like, a magic trick or something? You sound like one of those Facebook weirdos. Kai blinked. Wow. That was pathetic. He leaned in closer, voice smoother this time, coaxing the power behind his gaze. His eyes glimmered faintly as he locked onto her once more. Shut up, he whispered. Don't be afraid. I'm just going to have a taste. Gotta disvirgin my tongue with blood. She stared blankly, eyes glazed. Kai paused. Okay, yeah, that sounded way less creepy in my head. Whatever, bon appetit. His fangs slid out with a satisfying snap, and his eyes shifted, the sclera turning black, the irises glowing red, and the veins beneath his skin surging and pulsing. He leaned forward and sank his fangs into her neck. The instant her blood hit his tongue, his knees nearly buckled. It was hot, thick, and electric liquid life bursting down his throat. A euphoric wave slammed into him like a freight train, lighting up every nerve in his body. He moaned quietly, eyes fluttering. God, it is better than sex, better than drugs. Better than everything. He swallowed again, slow, greedy gulps, feeling the girl weaken slightly in his arms. The hunger roared inside him, but some small sliver of control yanked him back. Reluctantly, he pulled away, his fangs dripping, blood smeared on his lips and chin. He licked it off slowly, savoring the last traces. God damn, he breathed. His body buzzed with raw energy. Every cell felt like it was sparking. His veins felt like they were on fire in the best way. She swayed in his arms, pale and dazed. Kai bit into his wrist and offered it to her. Here. You'll feel better. She drank unconsciously from his wrist, the healing properties of his blood working almost instantly. Her color returned slightly, her breathing eased. He wiped the blood off her neck and adjusted her coat. No one saw this. You tripped. That's all, he whispered, brushing a hand over her forehead before compelling her memory. Then, just like that, he vanished in a blur of speed, the night swallowing him as he made his way back to his apartment, heart pounding, stomach full, and mind racing. The first taste was everything he'd imagined. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 4, To-Do List. The door creaked open and Kai stepped back into the quiet apartment he'd cleaned earlier that evening, the rush of the city still buzzing in his veins, or was that the after effects of the blood? The magic in the air outside had felt like caffeine laced with adrenaline. It was intoxicating and damn near addicting, but here, in this space, everything felt still and quiet. He moved straight to the shelf at the far wall, slid aside a stack of grimoires, and pulled out an old, heavy leather-bound one, the symbol of the Gemini coven etched deeply into the front like a scar. Behind it, tucked between the wall and the back of the shelf, was a small wooden box. He flipped the lid open and carefully placed the strand of Julia Wicker's brunette hair inside. For later, he murmured to himself, snapping the lid shut. Locator spell might be needed later on. He smirked, walking away. That's not creepy at all, Kai, he muttered. Next thing you know, I'm collecting teeth and finger bones. Dropping onto the couch, he pulled out his wallet, thumbing through the ID he'd woken up with. The name matched first and last. Same smug-looking photo too. Nice job, Rob, he thought. All the paperwork and none of the boring DMV lines. His stomach gave a low growl. Blood was still fresh on his tongue, but vampiric metabolism was a cruel mistress. He walked to the fridge, opened it, and was immediately greeted by a cold, hollow nothing. "Oh, come on," he muttered, closing it again. "I'm a supernatural demigod and I don't even have a bottle of water." Back to the couch. He whipped out his phone and checked his banking app. A modest balance greeted him, so not broke, but not exactly Bruce Wayne either. Just enough to keep him functional. A sigh escaped him as he leaned back into the cushions. "All right, Kai," he said to himself. Step 1, get into breakbills. Step 2, try learning and if possible master their magic. Step 3, don't get murdered by talking trees, time-traveling lunatics, or any other absurd shit this world's gonna throw at you. He folded his arms behind his head and stared at the cracked ceiling. So. Breakbills. Magic Ivy League. First test? That exam in the middle of nowhere with questions no one's supposed to answer unless they're special. Yay destiny. Kai frowned. Problem is, I'm already special. Too special in fact. If they run a magical diagnostics spell and I show up as a vampire? Yeah, that's gonna set off some serious security alarms. Dean Fogg probably has anti-possession, anti-illusion, anti-urinot human wards layered over that place like cling wrap on grandma's casserole. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Best way in? Quentin or Julia? QS the ticket in Mr. Chosen One with anxiety and a paperback addiction. But Julia did not get admitted to breakbills this time around. She gets rejected. That's part of the story. That whole tragic spiral into hedge witch chaos, what a nasty business. He sat up, expression sharpening. So if I want access to breakbills library, training, and secrets without getting spell blasted into a rabbit, I need a strategy. He tapped the side of his head. I need to blend in. Mask the vampire part if needed, cloak the siphoner energy signature if it can be detected. Maybe glamour up a human aura. Hell, maybe bribe a fairy. Or hex a talking tree. Who knows? Then his mind wandered to Marina. The hot blue-eyed hedge bitch queen of downtown chaos. He scoffed to himself. She wasn't exactly part of the main breakbills clique, but Marina was powerful, resourceful, and as manipulative as they come. The unofficial leader of the hedge witches, running magical rackets out of warehouses like some tattooed mafia. He'd only seen her on screen, but now that she was real? The idea of meeting her sent a small thrill down his spine. If I could track her down, maybe steal one of her little warehouses. Or blow one up. Whichever comes first. But then his thoughts hit a wall. Downside. She was expelled from breakbills. Burned bridges. Knows her way around, sure, but I'm betting Dean Fogg's got eyes on her. The man probably has enchantments set on every latte she orders. He frowned. She's not his daughter, pretty sure that's just fan theory nonsense, but they've got history. Which means, if I show up sniffing around her scene, I might end up on his radar before I'm ready. No thanks. He scratched his chin, debating, eyes drifting toward the ceiling again. Still, backup plan. She's a wild card, but wild cards are useful. If I can't sneak into breakbills the polite way, I might just kick the door down and take over the goddamn hedges. He stood up from the couch with a stretch. But for now, he muttered, heading for the bedroom, I stick with what I know. He paused by the window, pulling the blinds open just enough to see the neon blur of nightlife on the street below. I wait. Until the plot starts. Until Quentin gets his Hogwarts letter. He smirked. Till then. I guess I'll just familiarize myself with this world. Maybe stalk a few main cast members. Casually. As one does. He paused. Also, I should probably buy groceries. Blood doesn't cook itself. _____. Sunlight bled lazily through the blinds, catching dust motes in the air like floating gold. Kai rolled over on the couch, one arm dangling off the side, his other hand still clutching his phone from the night before. He sat up with a groan, rubbing his eyes. Ugh, damn sun. Okay, he muttered, blinking against the light. New day. Same magical drama. Kai stood, heading toward the kitchen again, more out of habit than hope. I need to fix this. No blood. No snacks. No evil breakfast sandwiches. He walked to the small table by the wall, grabbing a notebook he'd found in the apartment and flipping it open. He clicked a pen and started jotting things down. Breakbill's timeline, Julia equals rejected early, Q equals chosen, find a way in without triggering alarms, do not miss the magical exams unless absolutely necessary, learn more or practice TVD magic, avoid Marina, for now. Stock main cast, purely academic, obviously. He stared at the list. God, I sound like a deranged supernatural guidance counselor. He grinned, flipping the notebook closed and headed towards the bathroom to freshen up before breakfast. Time to blend in. Time to move pieces into place. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 5, Kick Off. It had been just over a month since Kai woke up in this world, and he'd already made himself very comfortable. One of the first things on his mental to-do list right after figure out how this world's magic works and stock main characters for fun and profit was the very simple, very practical matter of sustenance. And by sustenance, he meant blood. First order of business? Robbing a blood bank. Because what's immortality without a decent supply of hemoglobin? Not in a dramatic, wear a ski mask kind of way. No. He just walked into a nearby hospital, compelled the night shift staff to ignore the weirdly attractive man helping himself to the storage fridge, and strolled out with enough O-negatives to feed a family of vampires. He chuckled to himself as he described the plan in his head. Step 1 was navigate hospital security. Step 2 compel every harried nurse in a 5-mile radius to pretend I don't exist while I cart off 2 pints of prime-grade blood. Step 3, get weekly deliveries on rotation special blood, special delivery. Now, he had a little arrangement going on as well. A few well-compelled nurses delivered 2 pints to his door every few days after their shift. They thought it was part of some medical trial, and Kai? He just labeled it blood flicks and chill and called it a win. This way there were no suspicious glances, no beeping alarms or neighbors asking too many questions, just Kai's very own transfusion subscription. Oh, Dr. Parker, he imagined them cooing. Your blood sample is ready, would you like whole or skim? But nursing the blood was just a baseline. Kai had a to-do list far more exciting. Most of his spell practice was done far away from the city's more crowded places. Secluded rooftops, construction sites, abandoned subway stations, any place with enough room to throw a Motu's spell without turning heads. At this point, his control had become surgical. Invisibility, telekinesis, elemental spells, they all rolled off his fingertips like muscle memory. He barely even needed words anymore. The magical knowledge he inherited from Kai Parker was fusing with his instincts. The power felt like it belonged to him now. Naturally, it all started clicking without the candle-lit living room setup. He was becoming that dangerous hybrid he'd wished to be. And then, of course, came his first vampire. A scumbag trying to assault a woman in a back alley. Kai showed up, threw the guy across a dumpster, and, well, decided to get creative. He fed the bastard his blood. Snapped his neck. Then waited. When the guy woke up later that night, bloodthirsty and confused, Kai gave him a quick lecture about vampire biology and morality, with the moral part being entirely optional and thought, cliché. Totally, he thought, smirking. But hey, It works. Let's see if I can brew a daylight ring for him next. He tried half-hearted ritual at best and lit the vamp on fire like it was a Halloween prop gone horribly wrong. First attempt? Massive failure. He enchanted a ring he'd snagged off a pawnshop clerk, slipped it on the guy's hand, and opened the blinds. Poof! Instant rotisserie vampire. Oops, Kai muttered, watching the guy sizzle. Well, that was crispy. But hey, silver lining, I still get the hands-on experience minus the guy. Anywho, test subject 1 very dead and then we move on to number 2. Eventually, he got it right. On someone else. After cleaning up his crispy mistake, Kai spent the next few days refining his approach. He even kept the failed ring as a paperweight. Things were moving fast. Next on the Kai hit list? Scouting possibilities among the main cast. He'd been tracking the main cast like a predator with a clipboard and that wasn't even easy. Caddy was still sticking close to Marina after he found them by mistake while scouting for a warehouse to use for his magic. Nasty little thing, that girl, but with eyes like a lightning storm. Dangerous, sharp, and probably twice as damaged. Next, it was Alice Quinn who really piqued his interest. He'd found her holed up in a surprisingly upscale penthouse. Security spells on every window, glyphs carved into the floorboards, and enough wards to make a lesser witch cry. Protected tighter than Fort Knox. Probably has something to do with her family, rich, secretive, and known for throwing the kind of magical sex parties that involved at least 2 summoned entities and a pile of regrettable decisions. Still, damn. She's even hotter in person. He grinned before scanning the mental map he'd built. Then, with a shrug, time to dial up Quinton. Quinton, on the other hand, was doing his usual brooding thing. He'd admitted himself into a midtown mental institution, true to form. Kai had tailed him for a few days, mostly out of amusement. Poor guy, Kai muttered one evening, watching him stare at a wall. Classic Q. The only place more messed up than his head is a carnival funhouse mirror. If this were a rom-com, I'd be the hot mysterious stranger who helps him find his spark again. But this ain't a rom-com. What Kai did notice was that Dean Fogg had spells cast over nearly every one of the main characters. Protective spells wrapping every main character like bubble wrap, instantly telling Kai, no joy here. Definitely the kind of thing that got dropped into place after the whole time loop trauma from the Beast storyline. That's when Kai pivoted to a simpler target, James, the mundane boyfriend of Julia. Far less warded, way more accessible. Kai had been watching him for a week, learning his schedule and routines, and had recently discovered a very juicy bit of info: a party was happening this weekend. Bingo. And from what Kai remembered of the timeline, that was where everything kicked off. So just gotta find a way to get invited, he said aloud, flipping a coin between his fingers. Compelling James to invite me directly? Little too sketchy. Might raise eyebrows. He paused. But if James invites me in Julia's presence or Julia herself? That's just fate. Or poor judgment. Whichever works. Step in as her casual third. Party become his gateway. Plot kicks off with him already inside. With that, he grabbed his coat and slipped it on. Hair tousled, fangs tucked away, smirk locked in place. He sighed, confident. Time to swing by the bar, nudge things into motion, cue the social butterfly routine. Kai stepped out into the dusk-lit street, plotting his next move with the assured predatory grin of someone who'd already won the game before it even started. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 6, Party Invite. Kai took his time walking through the New York streets, the cool night air brushing past him like an invitation. The bar wasn't far, maybe 3 blocks from where he started, but he wasn't rushing. He took his time moving around and enjoying the magic in the air and walked casually, like someone who had all the time in the world. Because he did. As he turned the corner and approached the spot, he slowed, letting the noise spill out before he even reached the entrance. With a flicker of focus, his vampire hearing kicked in. The dull thrum of music, the low hum of conversation, the clink of glasses, laughter, music, and there it was. Julia's voice. God, I can't even think straight with these Yale exams coming up, she said, her tone frustrated but bright. I've got like 3 mock tests and no motivation. James's voice followed, easy and teasing. You say that like the party this weekend won't light you up like a sparkler. Julia laughed. Well, I need the party. Quentin needs it more. I'm pretty sure he hasn't left the apartment in a week. Yeah, I just hope he doesn't start going on about Fieri again. Guy's gonna scare off all the women. That made Julia laugh again, the sound light and real. He loves those books a little too much. Kai smirked. He let that linger in his chest a bit longer before blurring forward in a flicker of movement. Vampire speed carried him straight to the bar's front door. He made sure, deliberately, to keep his eyes on the decor anywhere but the direction Julia and James were sitting. Cool. Unbothered. Just another guy grabbing a drink. The moment he stepped in, he felt a gaze shift to his general direction. That subtle awareness when someone's watching. Hey, Julia whispered, elbowing James lightly. Isn't that the guy we bumped into that day? James turned, squinting past the heads and shoulders of the crowd. Oh, yeah. We didn't really introduce ourselves then. Julia tilted her head slightly, still watching him. Her brows pulled together, curious. James caught the look and grinned. How about we go say hi? Before Julia could object, James was already moving through the crowd. Kai, standing by the wall and pretending to read the drink specials chalked in aggressive cursive, didn't flinch when James clapped a friendly hand on his shoulder. Hey, stranger! Kai blinked like he was pulled from deep thought, turning with a slightly confused expression that melted into polite curiosity. Hello. James smiled. I'm James. We bumped into each other a while back. Outside on the street, remember? Kai squinted for a second, then let his face light up with recognition. Oh yeah. Right. You're the guy with the, hot girlfriend. He said it warmly, almost innocently, as if it were just a fact. James laughed. Guilty. Kai gave a short chuckle and added, didn't catch your name back then. Or hers. Julia, James said, nodding behind him to where she was sitting. She caught the motion and gave them a wave, a small smile playing on her lips. Not quite shy. Just, uncertain. James gestured. Wanna come join us? Kai's smile deepened ever so slightly, but his tone stayed casual. Yeah, sure. Why not? And just like that, he followed James through the crowd, already threading the needle. Slipping between warm bodies and the hum of cheap liquor breath. The booth Julia sat at was dimly lit, her fingers curled lightly around a half-empty glass, condensation slowly creeping down the sides. She looked up as they approached and set her drink down, offering a polite, curious smile. James slid in first. Julia, this is Kai. Kai Julia, or Jules if you want to be extra friendly. Kai smirked and nodded toward her, the infamous hot girlfriend. It's nice to be properly introduced this time. Julia laughed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You had me confused with someone else the last time we met, right? Kai scratched the back of his neck, his grin sheepish. Yeah, about that. I was jet-lagged, half hungover, and slightly enchanted by the New York humidity. I thought I saw someone I knew, turns out, I didn't. Julia chuckled and waved it off. No worries. Happens. They settled into the booth. Kai let his arm rest lazily along the backrest, his eyes flicking between the two of them with practiced ease. So, where are you from, Kai? James asked as he sipped his beer. Portland originally, Kai said casually. Born and raised. Then Virginia for a while. Now, here. Julia tilted her head. You're here for school. Kai shrugged. Something like that. My parents are out of the picture, so I figured a change of scenery wouldn't hurt. Julia's expression softened immediately. Oh. I'm sorry. Kai chuckled, waving it off. It's totally fine. Seriously. No tearjerker story, I'm alive. That's a win, right? James nodded. That's the spirit. So, what do you do? Julia asked. Studying or just chilling for now? Kai leaned forward slightly, eyes twinkling. I've got a weird thing for the occult. That got her attention. The occult, she echoed, raising a brow. James blinked, impressed. Wow, that's kind of rare. Yeah, Kai replied with a half smile. My parents were deep into it. Weird rituals, dusty old books, full moon crap. I guess it rubbed off on me. I've always been curious about magic, mythology, all of it. Julia nodded, suddenly more interested. That's actually really cool. A friend of ours would definitely like you, he's kind of into believing in the magical. Kai grinned. You don't say. James laughed. You two might get along better than I thought. Julia gave him a playful nudge with her shoulder. Kai turned back to her, thoughtful. There's something about it, right? All these stories and symbols. Maybe there's more to it than we think. I mean, what if there's something real hiding behind the folklore? What if we're only scratching the surface? Julia stared at him for a second, intrigued. Hey. Yeah. I guess so. He leaned back, letting the conversation breathe. And hey, if it turns out to be nothing, at least we have cool reading material and candlelit aesthetic. James laughed. Spoken like a true mystic. Kai took a sip of the drink he finally ordered and tilted his head at Julia. What about you? You applying anywhere, or already in? Applying. Yale, she said, eyes lighting up. Kai's eyes widened. No way. Seriously. James glanced between them, brow raised. I'm applying too, Kai said, doing a damn good job sounding surprised. Mock tests are frying my brain. I keep forgetting which timeline in European history actually matters. Julia leaned forward, eyes wide. You're kidding. Kai gave her a confused look. No. James laughed, you guys better not start a Yale study group and leave me out. Julia shook her head, still surprised. Wow. What are the odds? Kai smiled, letting the energy simmer just enough. They talked a bit more and swapping stories, feigning stress over fictional exams. The drinks made it easier and the laughter came easier as well. And Julia, she was starting to lean in every time Kai spoke. He filed that away. Useful. Then James said, Hey, you know what? We're throwing a party this weekend. You should come. Kai blinked, playing uncertain. Oh, I don't know. You have to come, Julia cut in, grinning now. Lighten up a bit. It'll be fun. Kai let the hesitation stretch just long enough before nodding. All right, you talked me into it. James pulled out his phone. Cool. What's your number? I'll text you the address. Kai rattled it off, letting the glow of connection settle into place. After a while, Julia finished her drink, and James flagged down an Uber. They stood, stretching, and Julia gave Kai one last smile. See you this weekend. He smiled back. Wouldn't miss it. They waved and left the bar, disappearing into the Uber waiting outside. Kai remained in the booth a little longer, fingers drumming on the table. His eyes drifted to the last ring of condensation Julia's drink had left behind. Well, he muttered under his breath, stretching his legs. That went better than expected. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 7, Chapter 7, Quentin. He stood, sliding on his coat, and smirked to himself. Now what the hell am I gonna wear to this party? Leather jacket and a fake smile. Classic vampire chic. With that, he slipped out of the bar, vanishing into the night and back to his apartment. The streets of New York might be noisy, but it is definitely nothing compared to the beat thumping from the second-floor apartment. James had texted him the address about 2 days ago. Kai could literally hear the music from a few blocks away, it was that loud, bodies were already moving, and he could smell the air which reeked of sweat, cheap perfume, spilled liquor, and blood. So much blood! Kai could hear heartbeats, dozens of them. Fast, loud, rhythmic. It was like the room itself had a pulse. He adjusted the collar of his fitted black shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows just enough to show his forearms, paired with dark jeans and boots. Simple and clean, just enough effort to look good without trying. He ran a hand through his dark brown hair, casually tousled, and knocked. The door swung open. The girl in front of him was Mexican, clearly brunette. Her hair curled in soft waves that framed her smooth, honey-toned face, and the crop top she wore did very little to hide her intentions or her curves. A drink in one hand, the other resting on the doorframe, her eyes scanned him like a menu. "Well, hello, Pappy," she purred, leaning just enough to show off the glint of a silver belly ring. Kai gave her that signature smirk, the one that melted resolve like butter in a microwave. The girl visibly shivered. "I'm looking for James," he said smoothly. She stepped aside, eyes still undressing him. "Well, come on in." As if on cue, James spotted him from across the room. "Kai. Hey, man, glad you made it. Come on in, enjoy the party." He weaved through the crowd to greet him, drink already in hand. Kai took it with a grateful nod. "Thanks," Kai said, lifting the red cup. "Strong enough to survive the night?" James grinned, already distracted as someone called his name from behind. "You'll be fine. I'll catch you in a bit." And with that, he disappeared into the crowd. Kai turned, sipping his drink, scanning the chaos. The place was alive with color and hormones. People grinding against each other, laughing too loud, bodies pressed together like they were allergic to space. Someone was getting a lap dance in the corner. Julia. Sitting on a couch with someone Kai immediately recognized Quentin Coldwater. Julia looked up, spotted him, and smiled. "Kai. You made it. I wouldn't miss this for the world," he said, taking another sip of his drink and sauntering toward them. As he reached them, she gestured to the man beside her. "Oh, right. Kai, this is Quentin." "Quentin Kai." Quentin offered a shy wave. "Hey. Julia and James have told me about you." Kai smiled easily. "Only good things, I hope." Quentin nodded, laughing awkwardly. Yeah. They mentioned you were into the occult, which is, kind of my thing too." "Yeah," Kai said as he took a seat beside them. "My parents were into it. Grew up around the stuff. I guess I caught the bug." That got Quentin's attention immediately. "Do you actually believe in all of it? Magic, the supernatural, that kind of thing?" Julia rolled her eyes playfully. "Quentin, don't go fiery on him yet." Kai raised an eyebrow. "What's fiery?" Quentin looked like someone had just asked him what oxygen was. "You haven't read it?" Kai leaned forward. "Nope. Should I? It's only the best book series ever created. Think Narnia, but better. Way better. Magic, talking animals, castles, gods, time travel, everything." Kai nodded, amused. "Sounds intense." Quentin launched into a full breakdown, clearly ready to go off the rails with his passion for fiery. Kai only half listened, grinning to himself. Until James showed up again, sliding into the couch beside them. "Hey, Q," James said. "Maya's asking about you." Quentin blinked. "Oh be right back." And with that, a girl with braids and a wide smile came over, grabbed Quentin's arm, and practically dragged him away. Kai watched them go and grinned. He really loves Fieri. Might have to give it a read, just so I don't feel left out. James groaned. It's a children's book. Julia smacked his arm lightly. You're such a snob. Read it in your free time, Kai. Kai gave a mock salute. Captain. His eyes drifted across the room again. He spotted Quentin now standing by a table with a deck of cards, showing a trick to some unimpressed girls. Kai smirked. Really? Magic tricks at a party? Bold move, cold water. He turned back to Julia, tuning out the crowd. How are your exam preps going? Julia let out a long sigh and slumped back into the couch. Stressful. My mock tests are trying to kill me. Kai raised an eyebrow and made a joke. What, no protective magic shield yet? Julia laughed. I wish. He smiled. Come on, you've got this. I mean, if some dork out there can believe in a magical land with talking rams and clock trees, you can survive a few tests. She laughed again, shaking her head. You're such a weirdo. I know. It's my charm. James was busy chatting with a friend who slid in next to him. Kai let the conversation drift while he enjoyed Julia's company. After a few minutes, Quentin returned with a drink in hand, plopping down across from them. Kai stood, casually holding up his empty cup. Excuse me, I'm gonna go refuel. He slipped away before they could reply. As he moved through the crowd, the brunette from earlier, the one who opened the door, spotted him. Well, hello again, handsome, she slurred slightly, eyes trailing him like a predator. Kai chuckled. Oh hey, fancy seeing you again. She grabbed his hand. Come with me. He let her lead him, smirking. Oh, okay. Where are we going? Check out my Patreon for advanced chapters, patreon.com/FridoZY. Chapter 8, R18. The bathroom door slammed shut behind them. The girl spun, pressing him against it hard, her mouth crashing into his. Her hands roamed without hesitation, and Kai responded just enough to keep things interesting. He gripped her waist, lifted her like she weighed nothing, and let her wrap her legs around him. She gasped as her back hit the door again, and he trailed kisses from her cheek, down her jawline, to her neck. The girl's breath came out in sharp little gasps, her fingers digging into his shoulders. Drop me, she whispered, voice husky and ragged. Kai let her down gently, arching an eyebrow. She's really about to. He didn't finish the thought, because she was already sinking to her knees and started to unbuckle his belt. The look in her eyes was pure hunger, just not the kind he usually dealt with. Holy hell! He muttered under his breath. He couldn't complete what he was saying as she took his dick into her warm mouth, making Kai feel a sudden jolt of pleasure which made him lean back against the door with a sharp hiss of breath. With a casual flick of his fingers behind his back, he whispered under his breath firmo. The bathroom door shimmered faintly as his spell sealed it shut. No interruptions. His hand rested on the girl's head as her rhythm built, her movements confident and greedy as she sucked his dick harder as if trying to suck out his soul from his cock. He let out a deep, involuntary groan, head tipping back against the door as a shiver of pleasure ran down his spine. He could have sworn he heard the door crack under the strength of him leaning into it. With a swift, fluid movement, Kai pulled her gently back up, meeting her dazed eyes with a smirk that was all charm and devilry. He spun her around until she was sitting on the edge of the sink. She didn't waste time. Her shorts hit the floor like she'd planned this all night. Kai stepped between her legs, his hand sliding up her back as he kissed along her throat and entered into her warm and inviting vagina with a single thrust. She gasped as he moved closer, her fingers gripping the edge of the sink as he picked up the pace. Oh phew, yes, harder, oh God, she whispered, breathless. Close, he murmured, chuckling darkly against her skin. But not quite. As he pressed into her and started stroking into her with a rhythm, the sound of flesh smacking against flesh filled the bathroom as her legs trembled in pleasure. She clung to him like a lifeline, lips parted in silent curses and moans, harder please, please, please. Kai leaned into her, one hand turning her face gently back toward the mirror in front of them. Don't scream, he compels her, his voice velvet smooth as his eyes darkened and veins spidered beneath them. Her gaze locked onto his in the mirror as his fangs slid out. She didn't scream, she gasped then moaned. Oh shit, yes that feels good. And Kai sank his fangs into her. His bite was slow, controlled, just a taste, a thread of scarlet power unfurling across his senses. Her blood hit his tongue like warm elixir, and he nearly buckled from the euphoria. The pleasure and power, it all mixed into one delicious wave as he kept pounding into her pussy. Why don't more people do this, he thought, dazed by how addictive it felt. Feeding and well, this. At the same time. This is practically spiritual. Oh fuck, don't stop, I'm close. He didn't take much and didn't stop thrusting. Just enough to keep her on the edge, to make the moment stretch and burn as he felt himself about to come as well. Her pulse thundered against his lips before he pulled back as they finally came together, licking the punctures gently before biting his lips with his fangs to leak out a bit of his blood for her to consume, and the wounds healed. Her chest heaved, and for a moment they both just breathed. Then, as if nothing happened, Kai adjusted and pulled out of her, gave her one last kiss, and stepped back. She stood on wobbly legs, running fingers through her tousled hair with a dazed smile. Wow! Kai chuckled, unlocking the door with a snap of his fingers. As they stepped out, a small crowd of annoyed partygoers glared at them from the hallway. Kai just flashed them a grin. Geez, can't a guy use the loo in peace anymore, he said with mock innocence. Kai watched her, then whispered a compulsion to her, forget anything out of the ordinary. She nodded slowly, already turning away, lost in her own haze. People were rushing toward another room, and Kai could hear James laughing inside, something about a three-way. Kai smirked. Well, this party's really something. He slipped past the crowd, casually downing the rest of his drink. Check out my Patreon for more chapter. Patreon.com/FritoZY. Chapter 9, Chapter 9 Breakbills. Kai was already dressed in a clean dark maroon button-up rolled at the sleeves, jeans that fit just right, and boots polished like he gave a damn. He sipped from his mug lazily, staring at his phone until it vibrated with a ping. James. Jules just left. She's going with Q for that Yale interview thing. Kai smirked. Oh, right, the dead guy. He remembered. Isn't that the one they found stiff as a corpse in his apartment? Oh wait, because he was a corpse. He sped across several blocks, stopping just around the corner from the address James had texted. Hiding in plain sight was his favorite game. Kai leaned against a lamppost like he belonged there, and extended his hearing like a tuning fork. Julia was trying to calm Quentin down. I'm still high, Q said in a daze, slurring slightly. Julia gave him a look. It's fine. Just breathe. You know what? Q mumbled. Screw it. It's just my alumni interview. Exactly, Julia said, smiling. It's only Yale. Q sighed. Only Yale. Julia brushed his hair off his forehead, giving him a soft smile. You're great. I am an angel. I am protecting the future cold water. Q took a sip of his latte like it was holy water. Yes, ma'am. They rang the doorbell and waited. Kai leaned back, eyes narrowing. He could see the nerves in Quentin's posture like a neon sign. Julia could too. Her comforting act was sweet, but also sharp. These two, so easily readable. His attention shifted to the apartment as they both walked in. He focused again. From the other side of the door, he heard Quentin's voice muffled through the walls. "It's Quentin Coldwater, the grad student." Then, after a moment he heard Quentin's shocked voice. "I don't believe it," Q said. Then came Julia's scream. Kai's body tensed. And there it is. A few minutes later, sirens wailed. An ambulance pulled up in front of the building. Kai watched as two guys and a woman uniformed officials hopped out. But something strange caught his eye. A door, one that hadn't been there before, opened quietly along the side of the building, and a woman stepped out. She was gorgeous with captivating features. She walked up to the medic, took the clipboard from her hands, and stared at her. Instantly, the medic's eyes glazed over, and she turned around, walking back into the ambulance like a robot. Kai squinted. And then, right before his eyes, the new woman's clothes shimmered, transforming into the same uniform the medic had worn. Just like that, she blended in. Kai let out a low breath. So that's Jane Chatwin. Gotta say, older or not, she's a solid 10 plus. She's got great legs. A few minutes later, Julia and Q emerged again, Q holding a brown envelope close to his chest like it was radioactive. Kai started to move to follow them, but something off pulled his attention. Jane was staring at him. Directly. And she smiled. Kai blinked. What the foo? She turned away like nothing happened. The body was loaded up into the ambulance. The doors slammed shut. And the van rolled away. Still rattled, Kai Vamp sped toward the apartment. He had to see for himself. Once inside, he checked the room top to bottom, his eyes scanning every book, every shelf, every inch of dust, and finally, the ram-shaped clock on the wall. A chill ran up his spine. "That is the Fiery Gateway," he whispered. His eyes narrowed. "If I didn't know better, I'd say this was all staged." His hand touched the chair the corpse was in. Oh, it definitely was staged. He turned around and moved toward the door to leave, his fingers tightening on the knob. All right, back to the stalking, observing more like it. But as he opened the door, he didn't step out into New York. He stepped into a small, dark, closet. What the? He spun around. No dusty apartment. Just coats. Wooden walls. A smell of lavender. He opened the door again and stepped out, and instead of a city, he found himself staring into wide, ornate hallways filled with stained glass windows and ivy-covered arches. Break bills. I've been. Narnia D, he muttered. Goddamn closet teleportation. Not even a snack bar in sight. Hey, tall and handsome, a sharp female voice snapped from the left. Quit standing there looking like a confused twat. Compose yourself. Kai turned. And saw her, legs for days, eyes like burning sapphires, and an attitude that could cut glass. Margot, damn. She held up a handkerchief, embroidered with elegant script. Malachai Parker, she said, squinting. That's you. Kai blinked. Yeah. She smirked. Not bad. Then she turned. Come on. Don't wanna miss your exam. Exam? What exam? He muttered. Well, I was planning to hitch a ride with Julia or Q when they made it in. But hey, this works. Margot kept walking, clearly not in the mood for questions. Entrance exams. Break bills. Magical bullshit. Blah blah blah, she called over her shoulder. Just follow. They entered a large lecture hall-like room. Students sat at separate desks with curious looks on their faces. Kai spotted familiar ones. Penny was seated with arms crossed, looking annoyed. Julia sat near the front, confused as well. Kai noticed Quentin just slipping in, tugging awkwardly at his sweater. Well, the gang's all here, except for Alice. Margot led him to a seat, then leaned close with a smirk. Good luck, Parker. He raised a finger. Actually, it's Kai. She cut him off with a wink. Better, and walked off. Dean Fogg stood at the front of the room. Imposing. Sharp. The glasses practically glowing under the lights. Please be seated, he said, loud and clear. Welcome. You may address me as Dean. I know you all have questions, they will be answered in due time. For now, your only task is to pass the examination before you. He turned the hourglass on his desk. The room shimmered slightly. Begin. Kai looked down at the paper. The words began to shift and rearrange. Okay. That's actually cool. He picked up the pen and started. The questions were odd, twisting from logic puzzles to magical theory to shape recognition. After some time, Dean Fogg clapped once. Please insert your exams into the envelope and report to the next room. Your cards will guide you. Cards were passed out. Kai looked over and saw Julia and Q hugging. Q looked dazed again. How did you get here? Julia asked. I don't know, Q replied. I can't really explain. I was in an elevator, Julia said. And now I'm here. It's weird. Q spotted Kai. Kai. Kai looked up from his card, doing his best confused face. Julia? Quentin? You guys too? Hey. How'd you get here? Q asked. Kai shrugged. I opened a door and bam, I'm in Narnia. Closet teleports and all. Q blinked. Thank God. I just started new meds. Dean Fogg raised a hand. Stop talking, please. Continue to your next exam rooms. They all moved, following the instructions on their cards. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 10, Chapter 10, Settling. Kai had parted ways with Julia and Quentin a few minutes ago, heading down a long corridor. He glanced at the card in his hand. It shimmered faintly and revealed the image of a door, and more specifically, the one right beside him. He smirked. Oh great! Magic flashcards now. What's next? A pop quiz with prizes. Rolling his eyes, Kai pushed the door open slightly and he stepped inside. The room was smaller than expected. Kind of well lit, with a strange old-world charm. Dean Fogg was there, standing between two others, Jane Chatwin herself, looking composed, and kind of sexy if I'm being honest, but focused, and another woman Kai didn't recognize. Before the door fully shut behind him, he caught the end of their conversation. I'm telling you, Henry, Jane said quietly, he's special. I know it. Fogg shook his head. This is a dangerous game. It could spiral out of control. Jane smiled faintly. A little mixed to see what happens this time, Henry. Kai froze internally. Shit, do they know I'm a vampire? Out loud, he played it cool. Am I interrupting some top-secret faculty meeting? Dean Fogg turned to him. No, come in, Mr. Parker. Kai stepped forward as Fogg sat between the two women. The dean studied him, hands folded. So, Mr. Parker. Tell me, what do you think about all of this? Kai blinked. All of what? Fogg gestured vaguely. Your file says you've spent years studying the occult. So, magic and the mysteries. What do you believe? Kai shrugged, keeping his tone breezy. I mean, who doesn't want to believe in magic? Life's a lot more fun when you think you can actually conjure a rabbit out of a hat. Fogg's gaze didn't waver. He asked a few more standard questions. Where did Kai study? What drew him to the occult? What did he hope to find? Kai answered with the perfect blend of curiosity and normalcy. Finally, Fogg folded his hands. The ordinary have a chance to become something more. But first, you need a little faith. Ah, the ordinary, hey, Kai thought. So they don't know /. Thank you, Ryan, for setting this up so well. This just got a lot easier. Outwardly, Kai kept his expression open, curious. Do some magic, boy, Fogg said suddenly. Kai tilted his head. I'm sorry, what? You want me to pull a rabbit out of my, what now? Jane actually chuckled under her breath. Fogg didn't. Yes. Magic. Let's see what you can do. Kai looked around. Right. No pressure. He held his hand out, palm down. Closed his eyes. A beat passed. Then another. Kai peeked out of one eye. Yerho, I don't think this is working. Fogg stood, ready to say something, but Jane raised her hand first. Kai. Tell me, what do you think magic is? Kai smirked. A get-out-of-jail-free card with flair. Maybe a bit of wishful thinking mixed with a splash of crazy. Jane nodded thoughtfully. Maybe. But magic is part imagination, part freedom. It's about not being bound by what's ordinary. That's what makes you truly free. Fogg watched quietly, hands in his pockets. Kai inhaled, his face softening. All right, let's give them a show, shall we? This time, when he closed his eyes, he focused and allowed a subtle energy to hum under his skin. The room's dust particles lifted, floating like silver motes in the light. Jane, Fogg, and the other woman glanced around in surprise. Kai opened his eyes in mock wonder as the dust gathered into a tight sphere above his palm. The sphere shimmered softly, holding its shape. Jane stepped forward gently, cupping it in her hands. See? It's all about the imagination. She turned to Fogg, who smiled ever so slightly. Well, well, well. Dash. The next morning, Kai sat on the edge of his new dorm bed, unpacking the few things he'd brought. His clothes, some random junk. Along with a disguised grimoire, nothing a little spell of disguise couldn't fix. He glanced at his new roommate, a scrawny Asian kid with glasses, practically radiating nervous energy as he introduced himself. Hi. I'm Leo. Kai gave a lazy smile. Kai. Then, placing a hand on Leo's shoulder, his eyes flared briefly. From now on, if anything seems strange about me, you'll ignore it. Don't bring it up unless I say so. Got it? Leo blinked, dazed. Got it. Kai dropped his hand, sighing. This entire place is strange. Like that'll help. A voice called from the hall. Where are we going? Quentin asked, trailing behind Margot and Elliot. Q spotted Kai. Relief flooded his face. Oh, thank God. You're here too. Margot gave her trademark smirk. Hello again, handsome. She nudged Elliot. Now he's cute. Kai smirked back. Thanks. Together they stepped out into the grounds. Elliot led the way, hands gesturing grandly as he explained. First years live in these dorms. Depending on your talents, you'll eventually be placed in a house that reflects your magical emphasis. Kai took it all, and the air was richer here, the energy of magic thick like honey. His vampire senses were definitely going crazy with how clean it actually was, probably a cleaning spell or something. Margot added, or, you flunk out. In which case bye-bye. Not that you'd care, because you wouldn't remember a thing. Kai glanced at Q. So the ol obliviate. Got it. Q groaned. Tell me about it. As they walked, Elliot pointed out groups. Physical kids. Telekinesis. They move stuff, lift stuff most can fly. Amazing partiers. But don't visit if you've got anything important the next day. Trust me. Kai nodded, only half listening. His sharp eyes tracked the gestures students made as they practiced. Every flick, every precise motion. So that's how they channel it here. Hey, interesting. Dash. Later in class, Kai sat at the back of a classroom, watching. Caddy had a foot up on her chair, looking relaxed. Penny beside her was brooding as usual. Quentin and Alice sat up front. A female professor addressed them. Although you performed magic for final acceptance, what matters now is who can grow it into something more. Who can become a true magician? Alice. Please. Alice stepped forward, calm, her hands steady as she approached a desk where a small glass sphere rested. Caddy smirked, whispering, "Ooh, looks serious." Penny rolled his eyes. "Please. An artist is at work." Kai added, dryly while paying close attention, "and the artist needs her focus, thanks." Alice started at him curiously, having heard him before, completely ignoring them, eyes narrowed, concentrating. The ball shimmered, melted, its form started shifting according to Alice's hand movements. Slowly, it reshaped into a delicate, tiny crystal horse, translucent and perfect. Kai's brow rose. Transmutation, hey? Very impressive. Although he had seen it from the series. This though made it much more impressive witnessing it real life. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 11, Harsh. The afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows across the quad where Kai sat beside a pool with Elliot standing, Margot, and Quentin. The four of them lounged lazily, with Kai sipping from a black water bottle while Elliot smoked and looked buzzed, the faint scent of herbs mixing with the breeze. As Alice passed by, clutching a book tight and doing her best to avoid eye contact, Margot smirked. "Oh, one of those. Happens every year," she said, nudging Elliot. "One of what?" Quentin asked, genuinely curious. Margot leaned back. "Overachiever. Shy. So brilliant everyone ends up hating them." Kai took a slow sip from his bottle. "Talented, sure. But isn't it kinda hypocritical to hate what people secretly wish they could be?" Elliot exhaled smoke and tipped an imaginary hat. "Well said." "Yeah," Q added. "I don't know how she does it." Margot shrugged. "That's Alice Quinn. Don't even bother trying to compare yourselves. Word is she comes from a family of magicians." Kai raised a brow. "Is that so?" "Oh yeah. Totally unfair, already knowing magic before the rest of us even figure out what a spell circle is." Kai gave a crooked smile. "Who knows? Maybe it's more of a curse. Imagine the pressure of having to live up to all that family legacy." "Nah. I'm fine not being born into a magic dynasty. Less expectations, more fun." Margot laughed. "Well, act accordingly, Mr. Wise and Mysterious." She lifted her voice. "Hey Alice! Come join us. Make new friends. Take a load off." Kai thought dryly, "Take a load off? Have you seen her? She looks like someone shoved a stick down her back at birth." Alice glanced over, only to find Kai watching her intently, his gaze sharp, like a hawk sizing up its next move. She froze for a second, then turned and walked off without a word, ignoring Margot. "Sheesh. She's a stiff one," Kai muttered, capping his bottle. Later that day, Kai was back under a tree near his dorm, flipping through a book he'd found on the theory of movements. Quentin had left a while ago, mumbling something about apologizing to Alice. Kai had politely declined the invitation to tag along. His phone buzzed. He checked the screen. "James." Kai answered, grinning. "James, buddy, you're interrupting my intellectual brooding session. This better be good." James sounded frazzled. "Hey, Kai. How are you?" Are you busy?" Kai immediately straightened. "What's wrong?" "Well, remember how you told me to call if Julia started acting weird?" "Yeah. What happened?" James exhaled. "She's not herself, man. Barely eating. not talking. And, like, it's her birthday today. Kai's eyes darkened. Call Quentin. We'll be there later. He hung up, shaking his head. Well, she's about to spiral. Guess I should actually do something about that. Dash. Later that night, Kai arrived with Quentin, Elliot, and Margot at James' apartment. The party was already in full swing. Music blared, people laughed and danced, and the smell of beer filled the air. Elliot stepped in first only to spot Julia sitting quietly on the couch. He turned on his heel and melted into the crowd without a word. James greeted them with a grin, holding up a book with Screunicorn scribbled across the cover. Damn, you guys! Back from the war! He hugged Quentin. Kai moved past him and approached Julia. She looked up, smiled faintly, and hugged him. Hey, she said. Kai returned it, his voice soft. How are you? Oh, good. Good, she nodded, too quickly. She turned to Q. Hey, you. Good to see you, Quentin replied, hugging her. Then, just like that, she slipped away. Kai arched a brow at James, who sighed. Yup. Across the room, Julia grabbed a drink and from a table near a random guy who was sitting. The guy glanced at the decorations. Saw the balloons. Happy birthday. The guy blinked, seeing the look on her face. Or, not. Julia's smile was hollow. Thanks. I'm gonna go jump off a cliff now. Dash. A bit later, Quentin found Julia alone in a bedroom. Kai stayed behind, chatting with James but keeping his senses sharp, listening in from afar. Tell them to test me again, Julia said quietly. Who? Q asked. Breakbills. And if you say what's breakbills, I swear I'll stab you. Kai smirked where he stood. There's the fire. Q hesitated. How do you even? I don't know. Maybe I'm a mutant. Maybe I just wouldn't let myself forget. Kai's thoughts were interrupted as James nudged him. Hey man, how've you been? Kai plastered on a smile. Great, James. You? Same. You want another drink? Actually, need to make a call. Be right back. Kai slipped into a quieter corner, tuning back in. He caught Quentin's voice. Doesn't mean you have potential. Kai winced. Ouch. Harsh, Quentin. Very harsh. Julia bristled. They missed it. No, I know you don't want to fail. You sure, Jules? You're good at everything else. But you're hurting yourself. They cut off my life. Your life is here. Kai shook his head, disgusted at how clueless Quentin sounded. Way to miss the entire point, cold water. He left them to their mess and went off to find Margot and Elliot. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 12, Birthday Gift. Quentin finally rejoined Margot and Elliot, who by now were tipsy, swaying slightly as they sat on a bench outside the bar. Quentin glanced around, puzzled. Where's Kai? He asked. Margot, barely lifting her head from Elliot's shoulder, waved her hand lazily. Oh, Kai? He said something about wanting to say goodbye and that we should head out without him. He'll catch up. Quentin shrugged. Okay, he said, though a part of him wondered why Kai would just slip away like that. Scene change: the rooftop. Julia exhaled a shaky breath as she stared at the city lights, trying to steady herself. The sting of Quentin's words still echoed in her mind. He had said things she never imagined he'd dare say to her, especially knowing how deeply they would cut. How could he, of all people, tell her she should accept not being good at something? That failing at breakables was somehow okay? It didn't feel okay. It felt like she'd lost something vital, as if a piece of herself had been ripped away, like losing a limb. Her eyes burned red from holding back tears, her fists clenched on the cold metal of the railing. How could he do this to me? What hurt most was that it came from Quentin. Someone she had loved, maybe still loved, though she hated admitting it. Someone she thought respected her, who knew how much this meant. She felt it in her bones, deep in her soul, as if magic wasn't something new to her, but something she'd once known and lost. Muscle memory, almost. Magic wasn't just a thing she wanted. It was what completed her, what filled that gnawing gap she couldn't explain. It felt right. She'd fought to hold onto that spark, even scarring herself to remember what they tried to take. And now Quentin, of all people, wanted to snuff it out? She DVE thought that Q would be happy she had managed to remember, had won out really against the bastards that thought they could just take her memory like that. She wiped at her face furiously, trying to push down the wave of despair threatening to swallow her. "Hey," came a gentle voice from the shadows. Startled, she turned to see the faint glow. Kai stepped forward from the dark corner of the rooftop, his tone calm but firm. "He's very wrong, you know." Julia let out a half laugh, half sigh. "Oh, is that so, Kai? How much of that did you hear?" Kai smirked. "Let's just say I got here in time for the whole show. You two weren't exactly whispering, great acoustics up here." He stepped aside and moved closer, joining her at the railing. She inhaled deeply, forcing herself to stay composed as his presence somehow steadied her. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," she muttered. "I would have interrupted him," Kai said, his voice softer now, but it felt like one of those things you needed to get out. "Besides, he's a damn fool for saying what he did." Julia shot him a look. "That's my friend you're talking about." Kai shrugged with a wry smile. "Really? If I had a friend like that, I wouldn't need enemies." He leaned on the railing beside her. "What he said. It was cruel, Jules. And it was wrong. All of it. I know what you're talking about, that sense of magic, the way it hums just beneath the surface. If Quentin can't see that in you, that's on him. I've studied the occult my whole life." "Sort of," he thought. "And I can tell you this, you have a natural gift. You're already more in tune with magic than half of Breakbills." His gaze met hers, unwavering. His voice lowered, as if sharing a secret. "If I didn't know better, I'd say they're keeping you away for a reason. Not out of malice but because you're exactly what they want, Jules. Whatever they tell you, don't believe it. You're marvelous, Jules. You hear me?" Her breath hitched as a tear finally slipped free, but this one felt lighter, like some of the weight in her chest was loosening. Kai smiled gently. "There's nothing I can do to force Breakbills to take you, that's true," Kai went on. "But what I can do is help. However I can." Julia blinked at him. "Really? How?" Kai smirked, pulling a folded page from his jacket. It was a worn sheet, notes on the theory of movement, with sketched gestures and explanations of basic magical principles. He handed it to her. Titled Theory of Movements, Basic Constructs. "I'm offering to teach you. Because I believe, truly, that you could be a force of nature, maybe even a goddess, in magical terms." His tone carried a knowing weight, like he was stating a fact rather than an opinion. "Wow!" She started, but he held. "Start with this. Consider it a birthday gift." She took the paper, a small smile breaking through her sorrow, and that simple expression filled Kai with a strange sense of warmth. "It won't be easy. Breakbills teaches gestural magic, like that. But my parents, my real teachers, believed magic is intent, will, expression. That's what I've practiced for years." Julia stared at him, wide-eyed. "Wait, you've done real magic before Breakbills?" Kai grinned, murmuring, "Fesmitos incendia," and a ring of fire danced around their bench, flickering in the dark. Julia gasped in awe. "Okay, you have to teach me that." Kai smirked, the flames vanishing with a subtle wave. Their faces were close now, breath mingling in the night air. In time. For now focus on that page. He stood, brushing ash from his sleeve. Think of this show as another birthday present to you. Kai, Julia called softly as he turned to leave. He glanced back. Thank you, she said, her voice steady, her eyes shining. Kai simply nodded, slipping into the night, leaving Julia on the roof with new hope kindling inside her. Chapter 13, 5. Before Kai left to meet up with Margot, Elliot, and Quentin, he stayed behind for one last bit of unfinished business. Pete came strutting around the corner in his cheap suit, cigarette dangling from his lips like he thought it made him look cool. He had just made his debut with Julia in the bathroom and forced her to use a light spell after making her think he was going to rape her, which of course he wasn't. He just needed her to panic and use a spell. Kai leaned against the brick wall, arms crossed, a deadly calm smile curling on his face. You know, it's generally frowned upon and illegal, actually to strip a lady of something without her consent, and even more so using a spell to bind her arms with her clothing. Pete froze mid-drag and looked to where Kai was and said. What the fuck, what the hell are you talking about, who are you? Kai didn't bother answering. He stepped forward just one step and Pete crumpled to the ground like his legs forgot how to work. A strangled gasp escaped him as agony exploded behind his eyes, like molten lava pouring through his skull. Fos matos morsinus pyrox alum, Kai thought, though he didn't really need to use the incantation, but it just felt better. The pain infliction spell rolled off him effortlessly, only a fraction of its true power, mindful of Pete's fragile humanity and not a vampire who can regenerate a blood vessel after it pops. Pete writhed on the concrete, choking on his own panic and pain as his nose started leaking blood. Kai crouched, ending the spell with his intent. His voice dropped, quiet but razor sharp. Do that to Julia again, and I will rip you apart. Slowly. And oh, you better make sure Marina doesn't take it too far with her, or else, well, I'll leave that for whatever I decide to do in the future. For a heartbeat, his vampiric features surfaced, veins darkening underneath the skin and eyes turning red, fangs glinting before melting back into the mask of a man. Pete, pale and trembling, could only gasp for breath as he squeezed his eyes in pain, and when he dared open his eyes again, Kai was gone. Kai found Margot, Elliot, and Quentin just as they were heading out. About time, twat. We were about to leave without you, Margot drawled. Lucky me, then, Kai said, smirking. Quentin gave him a puzzled look. What took you so long? Kai shrugged, deadpan. Got lost on the road to life. Elliot chuckled, clapping him on the shoulder. Well said, brother. The next day. It was almost midnight and this brought Kai to an empty classroom, peace at last. He lounged with his legs crossed on the table, absorbed in a heavy book, Theory of Transmutation and Integrity of Structure. From his black water bottle, he sipped what appeared to be water. In truth, it was blood. But thanks to a subtle illusion spell, one that masked reality behind a veil, no one would see it for what it was. A trick he'd perfected long ago. Nah, it was perfected after his to-do list was made, just in case he needed to misdirect anyone from noticing him sipping on blood. His solitude ended with the sound of footsteps his vamp hearing picked up. Quentin and Alice entered a few seconds later, looking surprised to find anyone there. Oh, we thought this room would be empty, Alice said. Kai raised a brow, grinning. A classroom rendezvous? How scandalous! Don't let me interrupt the romance, kids, carry on. Neither of them laughed. Quentin fidgeted awkwardly, while Alice gave him a look. Kai sighed. Tough crowd. All right, what's this? What are you two up to? Quentin rubbed the back of his neck. So I was contacted by someone through a dream this evening and ended up being branded with a symbol on my palm, and now because of that symbol we are trying to contact someone, who's dead. Kai blinked and added out of surprise. Right. As one does. As if it was a normal thing to just say hello to a dead person. Oh wait, yet it actually is for people like them. Branded, isn't that when Jane forced his palm on a stone slab in the fiery dream? They moved to the front of the class where a large mirror was placed, setting out books and tools. Kai tried to focus on his reading, but curiosity gnawed at him. He heard Quentin mutter after unwrapping his bandaged palm, "Great. That makes me feel so much better," showing his palm to Alice. Alice flipped through a book. "Quentin, no magic is safe magic. You should know that." Kai nodded to himself. "She's right. Especially with magic." Quentin asked, "So, who are we trying to contact, anyway?" "My brother," Alice said quietly. "Charlie. He died. I just want to say hi." Kai glanced up at that, studying her. Quentin hesitated. How did he die?" Kai thought, "Wow. Cold water." Alice's gaze darkened. "Horribly. That's all I know. No one will tell me what happened. I know it was here, at Breakbills. 5 years ago." She let out a bitter laugh as she saw Quentin's surprised look. "Did you think I came here because I just love magic so much? No, I need answers. He deserves that. Now, can we focus?" Quentin stumbled. I'm sorry. I didn't mean." Alice cut him off. "Shit, no." Quentin blinked. "What? This is good. We're making progress." "No, it's not that. We can't do this." Before Kai could comment, the door swung open. Penny and Caddy strode in. "What are you doing here?" Caddy asked Kai. Kai closed his book, deadpan. "Trying to read in peace. But I see that's impossible now." Penny gave a casual nod. "Hi." Caddy groaned. "You've got to be kidding me. We're sent to help these losers." Alice bristled. "Sent by who?" "No one. I just figured you needed help," Penny said, eyeing Quentin. "And yes, I can. Yes, I have. And yes, everything you think is boring I replace with dubstep." Kai actually laughed and they looked at him. "Oh no, don't mind me. Carry on." Alice pointed to the text. "It says we need 5. Each a magical adept. And look, here we are. Perfect timing." Kai frowned inwardly. "Hey. 5? Wasn't this supposed to need 4? Something's different." "Oh well," he muttered aloud. They gathered around a handkerchief in the center, surrounded by small bowls of herbs, with one large bowl of dark, bubbling liquid. Midnight struck, and all eyes turned to the large mirror in front of them. They stared. "Nothing." Caddy broke the silence. "I'm starving." "Hallelujah to that," Kai said. "What?" Caddy asked, noticing Alice's disapproving glance. Penny sighed. "No shit gets exciting." The two stood, ready to leave. Quentin sighed. "Guess I'll start cleaning up." Kai stretched. "Welp, I should get going too." One by one, they filed out. Behind them, unnoticed, the mirror fogged over. A crude smiley face appeared, drawn in the mist. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 14, The Beast. The next morning, the classroom hummed with the low murmur of the professor's voice as he paced behind his desk in front of them, gesturing toward a series of metal tools laid out on his desk and some apparatus as well. "Always pay attention to the alloys," the professor droned, his tone both stern and distracted. "Iron tends toward neutrality. Gold and silver, on the other hand, magnify the effect of the spell. Carelessness with metal choice can turn a spell into a catastrophe." Quentin, half listening, rolled a coin between his fingers, its clink barely audible. Caddy and Penny were nudging each other, clearly as checked out as Quentin. The professor's gaze swept the room. I caution you, test your tools before ritual work. The wrong alloy can alter your magic at a quantum level. Kai smiled faintly at that and leaning back in his chair. The professor, in his enthusiasm, had slipped into German mid-sentence, the words spilling out like a lecture at a Bavarian university. Oh okay, there, let it out, Kai thought, chuckling quietly at the man's obliviousness. But the grin faded, his expression snapping to seriousness as he remembered this particular scene from the series. Oh shit! I forgot! At that exact moment, the clock struck 12 noon. Time froze. The professor's hand paused mid-gesture. Quentin's coin stopped spinning between his fingers. Caddy and Penny, caught mid-smirk, couldn't move a muscle. They could only move their eyes wide, bewildered, watching as the air seemed to thicken. The mirror on the far wall rippled like water, and from it poured a swarm of wasps. Kai's gaze sharpened. And then came the figure, a man in a grey suit, his head completely obscured by the writhing mass of wasps. He skipped into the room, an eerie playfulness in his step, and came to stand before the frozen professor. So that's the beast, he doesn't look that tough, but the magic rolling off of him sure is, Kai thought grimly as he could actually taste the magic emanating from the beast. The beast raised a six-fingered hand, made a casual gesture and tightened his index and thumb before pulling them apart. And the professor crumpled lifelessly, his body fell like a discarded puppet. Dean Fogg burst in at that exact moment, rings of glowing white magic circling his forearms. With a sharp motion, he blasted the beast, sending him crashing through the professor's desk. But the beast rose, unbothered, like dust shaken off a coat. He lifted his strange hand again like an opera director. Dean's arms shot upward as if yanked by invisible strings, and with horrifying precision, the beast moved closer and plucked out the Dean's eyes, setting them carefully on the desk like trophies, and drew an arch with the blood to form a morbid smiley face. Yikes! That's gotta hurt. Not yet, Kai thought, grimacing. Then the beast leaned in, sinking his teeth into the Dean's neck. Okay, that's more my thing, Kai mused. But damn, overkill much. The beast turned, drifting toward Quentin. Quentin Coldwater, there you are, he hissed, grabbing Quentin's frozen face. That was enough. Kai's mask of pretense dropped. With a burst of vampiric speed, he rose just as the Dean's enchanted stopwatch vanished from the fallen man's hand, appearing, flickering, into Quentin's, and he pressed it, making time move again. Kai acted fast, opting to keep his vampirism hidden, for now at least, and cast a maiming spell. Per se ki fracta toy, per se ki total toy. The beast's hands twisted at grotesque angles, fingers fracturing invisibly. Several of his ribs cracked under the invisible assault, making the beast scream in pain. A ring of fire whooshed up around him, making the nearby students recoil in terror as they all scrambled in terror. Without missing a beat, Kai layered on another spell. Phosmatos morsinus pyrox alum. The beast's swarm of wasps began to collapse, dying mid-flight one by one as he popped whatever blood vessels was in the magical wasps' tiny heads. The man stumbled, gasping as the pain spell bore into him as well, seizing his mind like a vice, with pain vibrating his brain like a hot poker being used in there. The beast glared at Kai through the haze of agony in surprise as his wasps kept dying around him. You're new. What are you? I can't read your thoughts. Kai grinned, voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, I'm just Bugs Bunny in a magic hat. Someone summoned me here for extra spice. Surprise! What? The beast muttered, confused. That gave Caddy her opening. She launched a bolt of battle magic straight into his chest, which shook the beast lightly but did nothing. The remaining wasps fell faster, sizzling as Alice began casting, her hands a blur of precise gestures. Kai extinguished the fire ring with a flick of his fingers. His voice was cool, focused. Motus gravis. The beast, ribs shattered and hands mangled, hurtled backward, slamming into the mirror. At that moment, the stopwatch Quentin held crumbled to dust, scattering like sand. Penny surged forward and shattered the mirror with a powerful strike using a chair nearby, shards flying as the portal collapsed in on itself. The room fell silent, save for the heavy, collective breaths of those left standing. Okay, now here comes the questions and answers. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 15, Chapter 15, Be Serious. The room was chaos until, moments later, more professors burst in through the doors, their faces pale, eyes wide as they took in the wreckage, the shattered mirror, the body of the fallen professor, and the blood on the floor. Clear the area. Now! Professor Liu barked, his voice firm and cutting through the noise. Students began shuffling out, dazed. Kai started toward the exit, hands shoved into his pockets, when Professor Sunderland, Pearl stepped into his path. No. Not you, she said sharply, pointing at him. Kai arched a brow, smirking. What, and here I thought I'd earned a cookie or something. No one laughed. The weight of the moment still pressed on them like a storm cloud. Kai sighed, shrugging. Tough crowd. Seriously, I'll stay. Don't all clap at once. Pearl was already bending over Quentin, who still sat frozen on the floor, pale and rattled. Lou knelt beside Alice, checking her over. Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks for asking, guys, Kai muttered dryly. Shut up, Kai, Catty hissed, not even looking at him. Pearl focused on Quentin, softening her voice. Quentin, how did the beast know your name? Think. Try to describe the creature. And how did it get here? Quentin fidgeted, struggling for words, his mind still spiraling from the encounter. Kai, leaning against a desk, muttered just loud enough, geez, he acts like the beast asked him out on a date. Penny shot him a look. Dude. Can you be serious for once? We nearly got killed. Kai grinned, completely unfazed. Hey, life's all danger, buddy. Some people just prefer to make it interesting. The other students clustered near the door gave him wary glances like they weren't sure if he was brave, unhinged, or both. Besides, Kai thought to himself, I can't die. Moments later, a stretcher team entered, solemn as they lifted the lifeless professor's body. Another team gently loaded Dean Fogg, who had mercifully passed out from blood loss. Pearl's attention turned to Alice. Alice, tell me everything you saw. Alice swallowed hard. We were frozen. Some kind of paralysis spell locked down the whole room. Kai. I don't know how, but he moved first after it broke. He attacked the beast, maimed its hands, trapped it in fire. He stopped it. Pearl's brows knit together. Stopped it how? I don't know. He did it. Pearl shifted her gaze to Penny. And you? What do you remember? I told you already, Penny said with irritation. The dean had something. I don't know what it was or where it went. Pearl nodded grimly, then turned to Kai, who had perched himself in a chair, looking all too relaxed for the situation. Kai, she said carefully. How did you know those spells? According to your entrance exams, you had no formal magical training. Who taught you? Kai spread his hands. Okay, look. I didn't want to seem weird, all right? But my parents, they were into all kinds of stuff. Along the way, they stumbled onto magic. Kind of a family hobby. Pearl narrowed her eyes. Those spells you used, they're not what we teach here. They're different. How do you explain that? Kai leaned back, casual. Incantation magic. They developed most of those spells themselves. Private research. Well, not entirely, Kai thought. I don't actually need incantations at all, but no reason to admit that. Unique, Pearl said at last. Yeah, well, they were overachievers. We'll discuss this again later, Pearl said pointedly. Kai saluted lazily. Aye, Captain. Pearl moved to address the class. Standing at the front of the ruined room, she tried to bring a sense of calm. I know you're all shaken. You want answers. Here's what I can tell you, we live in a world among many worlds. The creature you saw, the beast, came from one of them. We don't know its exact nature, but it was powerful, malevolent, and it is gone now. Oh, my dear, you've no idea, Kai thought darkly. He couldn't help himself. Quietly, he muttered, I wouldn't be too sure about that just yet. Caddy, beside him, glanced over. What was that? Nothing, Kai said, flashing her an innocent grin. She exchanged a look with Penny, who just shook his head, as if to say, don't even bother. Pearl went on, droning about wards, shields, security things Kai had no patience for at that moment. His mind wandered. Julia, she should be with Marina by now. I hope she's not doing anything reckless. Suddenly, Pearl's voice snapped him back. There will be a quiz on this material next week. Kai groaned dramatically, throwing his head back. Ah, yes. A pop quiz. Just what I needed after being nearly murdered. Truly, the cherry on top of today. No one responded. The room emptied as students shuffled out, leaving Kai leaning there, smirking after them. Patreon.com/FredoZY Chapter 16, Expression. Julia followed Pete through the dim streets until they reached a rundown warehouse. She eyed it skeptically. So what is this place exactly, besides a health hazard? She asked, folding her arms. Pete smirked, flicking ash from his cigarette. This was the finest meat-packing plant in town. Julia scoffed, stepping over a broken plank. Yeah, it's a winner. Then, eyeing the star tattoo on his arm, she added, hey, that star, what's that about? I earned it, Pete said, pushing open a creaky door. You will too, with effort. Whole sleeve of M if you stick with it. What's it mean, though? Pete chuckled. You ask a lot of questions. Yeah, sure do, Julia shot back, stepping over the corpse of a rat as they entered. Inside, a girl perched on a counter in a small room, flipping through a battered book. Her eyes lit up when she saw the shelves of magical texts and trinkets around her. Oh my god, these are all real? Every one of them, she said, breathless with excitement. Pete gestured lazily. Guys, this is Julia. Julia, these are my associates. There were 4 others, 2 girls, 2 guys. The girl on the counter, wearing a red head warmer, stared at Julia. Holy shit! Pete poured himself a coffee and smirked. And that is, what's your name, sweetie? The girl glanced up from her book. Oh. Marina. I'm new. Yeah, no kidding, Pete muttered. He turned to one of the guys. Everything up and running? Yeah. Good. Julia, Marina Grand Tour time. Pete strolled off, Marina hopped down to follow, and Julia trailed them. As they walked through a hallway, Julia eyed the worn walls. So, who are these people exactly? Marina snorted. You seriously don't know? What are you even doing here? I don't know, Julia said with a shrug. Waiting for something interesting to happen. What about you? Magic is what I'm doing here. We're hedge witches. Hedge witches. Jesus, are you even? Girls, play nice, Pete said, leaning on a door. Here's where we keep our ingredients. Gotta keep 'em safe. Julia peered in. It's a meat locker. Or was. Now it's stocked like the end of a rainbow. Marina stepped inside, and Pete gestured for Julia to follow. After you. Julia stepped in, and the door clanged shut behind her. She froze at the sound of the lock sliding into place. Come on, Pete, don't be an asshole. Hey! Open the door, she banged on the metal. Hey, dude! Outside, Pete paused, the hand carrying his cup stopped. This doesn't classify as danger, does it? He thought, remembering the threat that loomed over him. There he walked off. Dash. Back at Breakbills. The crowd of students spilled out of the building, shaken. Quentin rushed straight to Alice, breathless. Kai watched, shaking his head, smirking. Oh look, the brave knight runs to the damsel. Classic. Alice raised a hand. Don't. We did that spell, Quentin started to say. Kai stepped in, clapping a hand on Quentin's shoulder. Hey, buddy. Mind keeping the suspicious behavior to a minimum? Maybe lower your damn voice. His grin was all charm. Alice shot him a look. She started to walk off, but Kai said, ah. Unfortunately, the golden retrievers got a point. Quentin blinked. Hey! Kai pointed between them. Look, if they find out. Quentin panicked. No one's going to find out. Alice turned back, eyeing Kai. Kai, what was that? Kai tilted his head, playing dumb. What was what? Those spells. They're not in any Breakbills book. Where did you learn them? Quentin joined in. Yeah, man. Seriously. Where? Kai tapped his chin thoughtfully. Oh yeah, those spells. I found them in this worn-out book at a garage sale. Next to a stack of Reader's Digest. Real bargain. Come on. Be serious. I am being serious. Before they could press him more, they heard a voice. There they are. Margot called out, striding toward them with Elliot. Well, Margot grinned. If it isn't the handsome knight. How about you come save me? Kai gave a dramatic bow. Oh, I definitely don't mind rescuing a damsel. Margot smirked. She turned to Alice. Poor thing. You okay? Elliot, with an arm around Quentin, announced dramatically, Nurse. We need drinks. Stat. He led Quentin off, Margot at his side. Elliot glanced back. Kai, come along. Kai waved. Be right over. Got something to do first. Dash. Later in his room. Something's wrong with me, Kai thought as he shut his door. The image of the beast ripping out Fogg's eyes and the dead professor barely disturbed him. Why didn't that shake me? He wondered. Is it this place? Or am I just changing? He thought of how he was blending Kai Parker's persona with traces of his old self. Well, at least I left out the full-blown psychopathic tendencies. So that's a win. LOL. Just then, Leo walked in. Hey dude. Bye dude, Kai said, brushing past him. Leo blinked after him. Oh okay then. Dash. At the physical kid's cottage. Kai stepped inside, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the stocked bar and the lively chaos. Oh, this is so much better than real life, he chuckled. What? A guy nearby asked. Kai ignored him, surveying the bottles. Pretty sure some of these mixed right could knock out a dragon. A girl winked at him from a couch. Kai smirked, shaking his head. Breakbills. I'm going to enjoy you to the fullest. He focused his hearing and froze. I killed someone, Elliot's voice drifted from a side room. Kai blinked. Wow, just dropping that like a mic. Quentin must be thrilled. What? Quentin asked, stunned. I was 14, Elliot admitted. He used to beat me up. I saw him one day, eating a candy bar across the street. A bus came. Bam! Bus met bug, Kai thought, smirking darkly. That's when I realized I was telekinetic. Don't beat yourself up, Magic doesn't always come from talent. Usually, it comes from pain. Kai stepped in, leaning against the doorway. Not completely true, he said aloud, joining them. He sat beside Quentin. Magic comes from all emotions. My parents taught me its expression. Connection to the world around you. Elliot? When you wanted him gone and when that desire peaked, the world answered. Elliot blinked. Hey! I never thought of it like that. Kai just grinned. That's what I'm here for. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 17, Chapter 17, Trouble. Back in the meat locker, the cold seeped into Julia's bones as she and Marina rifled through stacks of old papers and tattered notes. Their breath fogged the icy air. There's gotta be something here. Marina muttered, flipping a page, her voice edged with panic. She scanned a sheet covered in strange scribbles. These numbers. Could be a code, maybe phone numbers or something. Julia shot her a glance, rubbing her chilled hands together. That's too easy. Before Marina could reply, a shadow appeared by the door. Pete leaned in, looking bored and cold, groaning to himself. Come on, chop chop. He made a quick series of gestures with his fingers, sharp flicks and a circle traced in the air, and stepped back. Behind Julia, in a body bag she hadn't noticed before, the corpse inside jolted upright. Marina turned, and her eyes went wide. Oh my God! The dead man's head swiveled towards them, and with stiff, jerky motions, he lunged, reaching for Julia's head but instead grabbing her knit cap as she ducked and bolted. Julia! Marina cried, scrambling back as the naked corpse gave chase. Julia darted around a shelf, heart hammering, cold forgotten in the rush of adrenaline. Without thinking, she turned, drawing on the gestures she'd memorized all night. One hand swept sharply upwards, fingers splayed, the other thrust forward like pushing open a door. The dead man was lifted off his feet and slammed backward. His chest collided with a jutting steel beam, impaling him clean through. Crates and metal supplies clattered to the ground around him. Julia stared at her hands, breathless. It worked. Marina came stumbling over, pale as the frost on the walls. Oh my God, what was that sound? What the hell happened? She caught sight of the impaled body and recoiled, pointing. Is it dead? Julia nodded, swallowing hard. Yet. But it was already dead, so I don't know. The corpse's head twitched. Marina shrieked and clutched at Julia. Calm down, Jesus, the corpse muttered. It's me. Marina froze. Pete? Is that you? The dead man's lips curled into a smirk. Howdy. Julia arched a brow, regaining her composure. Wow, Pete. That's definitely a good look for you. Big improvement. Why don't you join us in here? I think Marina misses you. Ah, Julia, Pete's corpse said with mock admiration. Didn't expect that from you. That was a very impressive shove. Julia didn't bother replying. Marina was already snapping, tugging down her sweatshirt sleeves. Just let us out. Pete chuckled. Don't be stupid. Find your way out. Marina's voice rose in disbelief. This is a test? Another test. If you can't get through this, you don't have what it takes to do what we do. Pete's dead eyes locked on Julia's. Do you want magic or not, Julia? Did you look everywhere? Julia bit her lip, turning back toward the body bag. She knelt, hands trembling more from cold than fear now. Inside, tucked beneath the corpse's arm, was a folded piece of paper. Marina hovered. What is it? Julia squinted at the faded words. Unchala temporaire. She looked up at Marina. Temporary warmth. The physical kid's cottage was its usual haze of lazy chaos. Music drifted through the air, some upbeat indie track barely masking the clink of bottles and the soft hum of spells keeping snacks levitating and bobbing gently over the table. Kai lounged on the couch, legs stretched out, his eyes half-lidded, head tilted as if focused on the beat, but in truth, his thoughts were miles away. Season 1, he mused, recalling the madness that had unfolded in that future he technically wasn't supposed to know about. The beast, gods, monsters, much drama, so little time. Then his mind wandered further. Julia should be in a meat locker somewhere right about now. With a dead guy chasing her, he smirked. Probably not my scene. Let's not get involved in that one. Could ruin the surprise. A rustling noise snapped him back. Across the room, Caddy was rummaging through a drawer, clearly searching for something with growing irritation. At the same time, Caddy was making her move, sliding past with a book tucked under her arm and a drink in hand. Kai's eyes flicked to what Penny held, a rabbit's foot charm dangling from his fingers. Outside. It's bunk, Penny muttered, eyeing it like it had personally offended him. It's not. Caddy shot back, glancing up from the drawer. It's Emerson alloy. It's alloy rusting. Kai snorted inwardly. Oh good, they're arguing about rust. This is my cue. He rolled off the wall he was standing against. One fluid motion, already half turned toward the door back to the cottage, his head filling with another smart-ass remark he didn't bother to voice. But before he could escape, a voice called out, crisp and clear. Kai. Professor Sunderland stood there, arms crossed, that look on her face that said, "You're not getting out of this." Kai put a hand to his chest. Ah, Professor. And here I thought I was blending into the scenery. She gave him a look and beckoned him over. As Kai sauntered up, Sunderland raised her voice. There you are, Quentin. Alice. Penny. Caddy. Kai raised both brows and chimed in with a grin, and the deliciously handsome Kai. He added with mock modesty, yeah, that's me. All four groaned simultaneously. Kai leaned closer to Sunderland and lowered his voice. Tight crowd, hey. Sunderland shook her head, but the corner of her mouth twitched as if she wanted to laugh. I found the most interesting thing buried in our woods, she announced, her tone suddenly all business again. The group exchanged glances, Quentin looking nervous, Alice intrigued, Penny annoyed, and Caddy skeptical. Kai crossed his arms and smirked. Unless it's a treasure chest filled with magical whiskey, I'm not sure you'll hold my attention. Sunderland just smiled, that cryptic teacher smile that promised trouble. Follow me. Without waiting, she turned and started toward the door. Kai sighed and muttered, oh great. A nature hike. My day is made. But he followed, as did the others, curiosity getting the better of them all. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 18, Expelled. The walk back felt longer than it should have. When they finally reached Professor Sunderland's office, the group hovered awkwardly outside the door as she began calling them in one at a time. Quentin, you're first, she said crisply. As Quentin disappeared inside, Kai leaned against the wall, crossing his arms, already tuning his vamp hearing to eavesdrop. Inside, Sunderland's voice was steady. Tell me, Quentin. What exactly did you do with the book? Quentin's nervous voice floated out. We didn't go near the mirror. I swear. Kai smirked. Oh, look at that. Lies 101 Lesson 1, Quentin Coldwater Edition. Then Quentin's voice wavered. Okay, yes. I mean, sure, I touched it. Kai nearly chuckled out loud. And there it is. Crash and burn. Quentin kept digging deeper. We all touched it. Kai shook his head. Oh wow, there he goes. Just confess to a bank robbery while you're at it, buddy. Next up, Alice went in. Her voice was calm but tight. We were studying. That's all. Caddy followed, her tone edged with irritation. What language even is this? Finally, Sunderland called, Kai. Kai sauntered in, dropping into the chair across from her. I have to say, Professor, your skin is flawless. Do you have some secret witch skincare regime you'd like to share? Sunderland didn't even blink. What did you do with the book, Kai? Kai leaned back, crossing one ankle over his knee. Ah, this book, hey? I used it as a coaster for my drink. Held up great, really. Top-notch craftsmanship. Then his grin faded slightly. Seriously, though? I was there that night to stretch my legs, enjoy a bit of a read. Not exactly out summoning moth monsters for kicks. He added with a smirk, besides, if I had summoned anything, I'd have aimed for something cuter. Sunderland sighed, clearly exasperated. Look, I'm just trying to make sense of this. There's summoning residue all over that book. Kai raised a brow. Hey! You don't say. Shocking, truly. She gave him a flat look. This act of yours? It's not as charming as you think. Oh, I doubt that, Kai said, flashing a grin as she called, Penny. Kai stepped out, rejoining the others in the hall as Penny went in. They all stared at him expectantly. Well? Quentin asked, his nerves fraying. Kai shrugged. Told her I'm secretly a demigod. Asked if she wanted an autograph. Alice groaned. Kai added, deadpan, also confessed to being the true heir of Narnia. You should have seen her face. Quentin rubbed his temples. Would you just be serious for once? Kai sighed, his grin faltering for a moment. Fine. I didn't say anything. Not really. Just dodged like usual. They sat in tense silence for a few seconds, Kai's foot tapping against the floor. Finally, he muttered under his breath, oh, that stupid rat. Before they could ask, the door opened. Penny emerged, looking at Caddy. It's fine. Let's go, Penny said to Caddy, steering her toward the exit. He glanced at Alice, adding, You're welcome, by the way. He looked at Kai. Nothing personal. But Kai's smirk had vanished. He stepped forward, standing right in Penny's path. His eyes, for once, were deadly serious. I wonder, did it tell you to lie about my involvement too? Penny froze, visibly shaken. Because there was only one it Kai could be referring to, the beast. The one voice Penny heard in his mind when he least wanted to. Before anyone could react, Sunderland's voice called out again. Quentin! Kai! Let's finish this! Kai turned, but not before seeing Penny's face pale further, realizing Kai knew more than he should. As Kai and Quentin headed in, Quentin muttered, There's nothing I can do in this moment to stop a comet from crashing into Earth, is there? Without even glancing at him, Kai said dryly, with the right spell, you can erase it out of existence. And maybe erase the snitches while you're at it, Kai thought, sighing as they stepped into Sunderland's office together. Kai and Quentin left Sunderland's office, the weight of their fate pressing down with every step. Return the study materials, Sunderland had said. A specialist will be here soon to tidy up your memories. Kai rolled his eyes internally. Lovely. About to get expelled without actually doing anything wrong. An job, Kai. Truly, you outdid yourself this time. Out loud, he muttered, well, at least I didn't get blamed for the moon falling out of the sky. Yet. Quentin shot him a look, exasperated. How can you even joke right now? Kai smirked. Because stressing about things you can't control? Kinda pointless, don't you think? But inside, his mind was ticking. All right, how would this resolve? The specialist comes, wipes memories, life moves on. Humph, you're right. Unless, of course, I give it a little spice. He clapped Quentin lightly on the back. Relax, cold water. It's not over till it's over. Then he peeled off, heading to collect the materials for return. Halfway down the hall and out of the building, Kai spotted Margot and Elliot. Elliot veered toward Quentin, no doubt to soothe the poor guy with charm and liquor. Margot, of course, made a beeline for Kai, her grin sharp as ever. "So, she drawled, eyes sparkling, "I heard a little gossip about you and a certain squirrel jumping off the tree." Kai arched a brow, mouth quirking. "Oh, is that what they're calling the rat infestation these days?" Margot laughed. "Touché. But seriously, it sucks. I don't think there's much to do in situations like this." Kai's expression softened slightly, his sarcasm dropping for a moment. "You know, it's funny. I actually want to be here. Probably more than I show it at first." He paused, then added, almost thoughtful, "When you find something you love, it stops being just a place or a thing. It becomes a literal extension of your existence. You lose it, and it's like losing a part of yourself." Margot blinked. "Wow. Okay, I thought you were all bite and no depth, but damn. That's kind of beautiful." Kai grinned, his usual edge returning. "Don't get used to it. Sarcasm is cheaper." He gave her a playful wink. "Excuse me, lady of the glam. I have a book to drop off before the memory police get here." As he turned to leave, he spotted Quentin up ahead, just finishing dropping off his materials and ending a phone call. Penny was nearby, and Quentin, looking determined, started walking toward him. Kai's eyes gleamed, and a grin tugged at his lips. "Oh, this is going to be interesting. Time for the next episode of Coldwater and the Traveler's Secrets and Snitches. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 19, Trust. Back in the freezing dark of the warehouse, Julia and Marina rummaged through every container and scrap in the meat locker. Julia's eyes darted to the impaled body. "Fat," she muttered while looking at the dead body for the last ingredient. "We need fat." Marina's eyes widened in horror, getting the idea. "Oh no. No, no. I can't." Julia grabbed a pair of rusty scissors from a shelf, stood over the body, and started cutting in. Marina gagged. "Oh my god, you're just going for it." After a few tense, grisly minutes, Julia pulled free a chunk of what she needed. She mixed it with the other ingredients they'd scrounged, her hands shaking, and with a swift gesture the mixture transformed into a thick, creamy salve. "Magic Hogo," Marina breathed, relief flooding her as they rubbed the warmth cream onto their faces. Julia exhaled hard. "Let's find a way out of this shithole." Meanwhile, at Breakbills, Kai watched the brewing drama from a distance, arms crossed. Quentin was in Penny's face, shoving him. Penny smirked darkly. "Ho ho ho, you little piece of shit," and shoved Q back, harder. Quentin reeled, ready to charge again, but Penny's open palm smack caught him clean, dropping him to the ground. Kai muttered under his breath, "Well, that escalated from toddler slap fight to WWE real quick. You ratted me out." Q yelled from the floor. Kai listened, vamp hearing on point, thinking, "Oh boy, this'll make for great gossip fodder." Penny scowled. "I told the truth. Not all of it." Q fired back. "Oh, am I a fool?" "Apparently not." Kai decided that was his cue. He strolled over as Q scrambled up. Calmly, Kai grabbed Penny's shoulder and squeezed just enough to make him wince. "Arg! Let me go!" Penny hissed. Kai lifted him slightly, separating the two. Penny glared and tried to shove at him. Kai chuckled. "Oh? Are you challenging me now?" For a fraction of a second, dark veins flashed beneath Kai's eyes. Penny froze. What the fuck was that? Quentin, back on his feet, panicked and fired off a battle spell he copied from Caddy, the spell she had used against the beast. but it rebounded off Penny's pendant which had protection magic on it. The deflection ricocheted toward Kai, who sidestepped inhumanly fast, though to a few watching students, it seemed as if he dodged the impossible. The blast sent Quentin flying backward, groaning in pain. Penny started toward Q, but Kai blocked him with a firm look. "Don't even try it." "What the fuck, Kai?" Penny barked. Then to Q, "What the hell was that, you maniac?" Kai, spotting Sunderland approaching, muttered, "Great. This scene really says we're well-adjusted future magicians." Sunderland's voice cut through the tension. "Hey! Step back! Who fired off that magic?" Penny pointed. "He did." Q groaned. "I did." Kai shrugged and says, "Well, there you have it. The rat and the squirrel confess their unspeakable crimes." Sunderland snapped, "Infirmary. Both of you. Now." Kai made to walk off. "Well, that's my cue." "No. You too, Kai. I saw that spell. Concussive force like that could have affected you." Kai internally groaned, "Fantastic. Because what I really wanted today was a thorough exam for injuries I don't have." Dash. Back at the warehouse. Outside the freezer, James watched a guy walk in front of him. Suddenly, the door blasted off its hinges. Julia and Marina emerged, faces smeared with warmth salve. "Figured it out," Julia snapped. "The spell. Or, you know, the whole point that there isn't one. Not to keep the door locked, not to get out." "Cute, Pete." Pete gave her a mocking slow clap, leaning against a crate. "Oh, and FYI," Julia added, tossing the bent scissors aside. "Scissors make a shitty screwdriver." Marina stayed silent, glaring at Pete as he rose to his feet. "Good for you," Pete said. "Now you know why it's important to almost die for no reason." Julia fired back. "No. To figure out that not everything's solved by magic. Key fact if you wanna last the month." Julia glared. "You're not still debating if you're gonna let me into your little club, are you?" "Hey, I invited you." "No. You attacked me. In a bathroom. On my birthday." Pete smirked. "And then your angry psycho boyfriend nearly popped my head off for it with a weird magic." Julia blinked. "James. No, not that ordinary one. I mean the other one." Her breath hitched. "Kai. Oh yeah. Gotta say, he caught me off guard. But next time." Pete stepped closer, voice low. "He definitely wouldn't." Julia shook her head. "You know what, I'm done proving myself to you." "You weren't proving yourself to him. You were proving yourself to me." Marina finally spoke, rolling up her sleeve to reveal 5 stars tattooed along her arm. Pete grinned. "And that means, level 50. Julia squinted. Wait, so you were top bitch in New York?" "For starters." Marina said it with pride. Julia crossed her arms. "And this was me discovering how much I like you. Smart. Passionate. And you can definitely toss a guy around and question things." Julia scoffed. "You messed with my head. Think of how much you learned. Useful for when you're level 50. As Julia rolled her eyes, Pete chimed in. "Hey, don't be mad." Don't be mad," Marina echoed. Julia frowned. "How am I supposed to trust you?" Marina's grin softened. "Why would you trust anyone? But I'm willing to teach the right people everything I know. And I know a lot connections in certain places." Julia narrowed her eyes. "Break bills." "Oh yeah," Pete said, smirking. "The one your psycho boyfriend attends." Julia bristled. "He's not." "Come on," Marina interrupted. "Besides, that could be useful for you and for us." Pete gestured to a corner. You want a drink? Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 20, Chapter 20 cleared. In front of the infirmary room, Kai leaned against the wall, arms folded, as Professor Pearl Sunderland stood before him with a not-so-subtle tone of concern. Why don't you want the checkup, Kai? That rebound could have residual effects on you. Kai gave a casual shrug. Nat, I feel fine. Trust me, if anything does happen, I'll wobble over to the infirmary myself. Inside, he thought, right, because letting them hook me up to a monitor and accidentally discover my vampiric nature sounds like a great day plan. Suddenly, his enhanced hearing kicked in. Quentin's voice ripped through the silence in a scream of agony. The sharp crack of bones snapping back into place rang loud as the nurse's voice followed, calm but firm, hold still, please. Penny's laughter echoed. Pussy. Kai winced. Ouch, he muttered. Sunderland frowned. What the hell was he thinking using that spell? Kai looked at her, deadpan. You know, it's kind of been his lifelong dream to a place like here. Getting ratted out by Penny probably crushed that more than the spell did. She crossed her arms. You both performed a spell that summoned a beast from another world. What exactly were you expecting? Kai glanced at her, briefly tempted to compel her into dropping the whole conversation. Instead, he exhaled. You're right. We did something stupid. It wasn't intentional. He added with a shrug, I mean, who would have guessed that some random old book lying around would summon a moth-faced eldritch entity to our cozy little campus? Pearl sighed, unimpressed. Kai smirked. Gotta love magical academia. Just one demonic oopsie away from expulsion. Pearl scoffed and walked off, heels clicking down the hallway. Dash. Later that evening, Kai was heading back toward the physical kids' cottage when he caught sight of someone in a hoodie slipping away from the direction of the building. Catty. He raised a brow. And where are you going, sexy boots? In a blink, he vamp sped after her, keeping to the shadows. She moved quick, cutting past the hedge wall and slipping into one of the school's secret passageways. Man, Kai thought as he watched her from behind a pillar, for a school with tight security, it's got more holes than Swiss cheese, pun very much intended. They made it to the city. As Kai followed at a distance, he drifted into a thought. Maybe it's time to teach Julia some real spells like a proper telekinesis spell. Or fire starting. Or Wingardium Levi nope, he muttered, snorting. Wrong universe, Kai, then again a levitation spell would do +1 or 2 battle magic. He paused on the sidewalk. Maybe we should take it slow, he said aloud to no one. A couple passing by gave him a strange look. Kai smiled. I got my pods in. Even stranger looks. Right, he thought. Pods aren't a thing yet. Forgot I'm the iOS update this world wasn't ready for. His attention snapped back when he saw Caddy slip into a parked car with none other than Pete and Marina. Kai perched on a nearby rooftop edge, listening in. So, I'm sorry, Caddy was saying, I couldn't get the necklace thingy. Marina, Emerson alloy repellent. Kai rolled his eyes. Nope. You gave that to your new fuck buddy, sweetheart. Don't lie on my time. Then came the part that made his brows lift. Marina, oh, and by the way, who the hell is Kai? Caddy, wait, what? Why are you asking about him? Pete chimed in. Well, he threatened me. And I don't like him. Kai blinked. Ah, Pete. I'm flattered. Really? Caddy said flatly, he's just a student. Kai winced. Ouch, Caddy. Way to make a man feel insignificant. Then she added, besides, I wouldn't want to be on his bad side. He can be bad news. Kai smirked. Why, thank you for the lovely compliments, he whispered under his breath. Marina responded, watch him closely. Caddy Kai shut off his hearing just as Caddy exited the car with a list. He watched her for a beat longer and thought, more like liberate for them. Bet half of that list ends up borrowed forever. Grinning, he moved down to the alley's corner just as Caddy turned it, intentionally bumping into her shoulder. Hey, watch it, dimwit, she snapped before realizing Kai. What the hell are you doing here? Kai cocked a brow. I could ask you the same thing. Caddy shoved the list quickly into her hoodie. I asked you first. Kai laughed. I came to grab a few things from my apartment, but you know what? Nah. I'll do that another time. Yeah, she said. Oh yeah, he smirked. And now you're headed back. Yup. Perfect, he replied sarcastically. Then I shall walk the mighty adventurer home. As they walked side by side, she asked, how'd you even get out? Oh, secret passage. Elliot showed me. Guess I've got my own marauder's map now. Kai glanced sideways at her, amused. Mo, this is going to be fun. Having someone watch me, I mean. Ha. Dash. Later, Kai stood in front of Dean Fogg's office. Quentin had gone in nearly 15 minutes earlier, likely to speak with Jane Chatwin or Eliza as she's taken to calling herself. Sure enough, it was going exactly as Kai expected. Quentin tried hiding the Emerson crystal, only for Jane to call him out with that timeless, knowing smile. Of course, Kai thought, I'm sure that's not the first time he's tried that. Seeing as she's been through over 30 loops now. He perked up at Jane's voice, which always seemed to tingle in his bones just slightly. Relax, Quentin. Nobody's taking your mind today. Or Kai's, for that matter. It'd ruin everything. Kai listened closer. We'll make something of you yet, she said gently. I'll tell the school, one more chance. Probation. They'll respect my call. Just don't make me regret it. And don't hop back on the garden path like some little lemming. From his spot around the corner, Kai grinned. Quentin exited moments later, beaming. I'm not expelled. Kai returned the smile coolly. Congratulations, buddy. Just don't go full squirrel next time. Jane's voice floated through the door. Kai. Come in. Kai gave Q a two-finger salute and entered the office. Jane leaned against her desk, turning the Emerson crystal between her fingers. So, Mr. Parker. Kai closed the door. Oh please. That's my dad. Just call me Kai, he was the boring one. He gave her a long, appreciative look and grinned. Though, I must say, Professor, you're making me feel butterflies. Everywhere. Jane laughed, a light, melodic sound. Oh my! What shall I do with you? Oh, I can think of a few things. She gasped. You naughty boy! You don't know the half of it. She walked slowly around the desk, and Kai subtly eyed her graceful figure. Damn, he mouthed, before quickly schooling his expression. Sitting on the desk before him, Jane crossed her legs with casual elegance. I heard you fought it. The beast. Kai said, rubbing his jaw. Well, fought might be overstating it. More like, delayed it slightly. He tapped his chin. I think I broke a few ribs. Maybe a couple fingers. Pretty sure the beast broke a few things too, mostly rules of reality. Jane smiled softly. You're very interesting, Kai. I like interesting. Oh, I know. But please, go on. This is a first, she said, tone cryptic. A first of what exactly? Nothing, she replied, then met his eyes. Just, a feeling. That it's going to be very different this time around. And for that I believe a thank you is in order. Kai leaned back slightly, cocky grin spreading. What kind of a thank you though? Patreon.com/FredoZY Chapter 21, Chapter 21 Jane R18. Jane looked into his eyes again, then smiled sexily. This made his eyes widen even as she shifted around to come face to face with him, before slithering down his set form. While casting to lock the door and soundproof it. "Ah, it's that kind of a thank you then," he said with feeling as he looked down into a devilish pair of seductive eyes. "Well, you definitely wouldn't hear any complaints from me then. Oh fuck me," he said as she yanked open his fly and quickly took him out, then wasted no time in finally starting her thank you. Kai felt a burst of warm pleasure as he looked down to see shapely lips pursed around his crown as the sexy and beautiful Ginger sucked very hard, his eyes wide at the sheer desire he saw there. He was aware of the vast difference between Jane and the other girl he's had ever since coming to this universe, and she had nothing on Jane. He was deep in pleasure and thought it couldn't get any better, and boy was he glad to be wrong. She grasped his trousers, pulling herself close in, his shaft sinking into the wonderful heat of her throat, lips clasped strongly around his wide length, her tongue moving on the back, and sending delights throughout his system, almost causing his legs to tremble. He grinned from ear to ear as he peered down at her, making the professor smirk at what she was doing to him, then groaned at the depths of her throat, creating a vibrating effect of his cock, working harder, her suction stronger and starting to bob her head faster. "Holy Ryan Reynolds, Professor," he said with feeling, reaching down and caressing that beautifully bright red hair of hers, lightly bunching it in his hands, riding her motion instead of any type of forcing. Like always, he got a slew of what she wanted, what she most desired, and was quite surprised to find that this strong, independent, and even powerful woman wasn't so different from any of the women he'd been with, and by God, she definitely knew what she was doing. She was getting more active the more he forced her head down on his length, showing she enjoyed the little aggressive action and wanted him to show her the way to that. He held her head a little firmer, now guiding her deep onto his shaft, her beautiful face puckered around his shaft as he moved her deeper, his crown just brushing the back of what felt like a tight throat. He smiled down, seeing as she took off her scarf and unbuttoned a bit of her black blouse, which now gaped a little. Kai reached down with his spare hand and palmed a modest breast, making her moan, her nipple puckered and hardened like adamantium tip of red as he caressed her by reaching down her blouse, his hand direct on a braless breast. He tweaked her nipple between thumb and forefinger until she let out the loudest moan yet, pulling back, panting, her sapphire eyes wild. "That feels so good," she informed him, going for her buttons. He didn't even attempt to let go even as she divested herself of the black blouse. He continued to palpate and work her breast with a deft, strong hand, making her pause several times, moaning fitfully, losing her thoughts several times. "Fucking good," she told him with a honeyed tone that reached into his libido and stroked into full action. He now wanted her more than anything. The energy coming off her told him a lot, including the fact she was a positive wellspring of such. He shifted his hips, causing her to almost choke as his cock punched the back of her throat a little. She moved her silky black blouse to fall around her. His cock rubbing up a silky cheek and making her gasp and moan, and turn her head to suckle kiss the side of his shaft, staining it with her red lipstick. He guided her with a gentle hand to rub his crown all over her beautiful face, lightly rouged lips left lipstick trails up his long shaft, now throbbingly aroused. Finally he shifted her face on, and she grabbed him suddenly and brought him closer to her lips, sinking slowly into her already sucking mouth, full of slow sensual sensation, and into the warm saliva-filled and very sexy mouth. She moaned around his crown, her tongue already playing a merry havoc on his senses, moving strongly enough to bounce his cock a little with her deft movements as she shifted him inside her mouth, poking the tip to the join of his crown to shaft and sending shocks of pleasure into his system. Then she reached out, hooked her hands into his pockets and pulled him in. He was sent deep, not brushing this time but entering that wonderful moist constriction of a woman's throat, completely deep-throating him. "Oh God," Kai muttered as his eyes closed. Something that was particularly fabulous with her as she choked a little at the entrance of something so hard and girthy entering her throat. She hammered her head forward, her mouth open a little, drooling down his length. Spittle settled onto his balls, sending pleasure throughout his system as she choked a little on his cock. He looked into her unusual and beautiful blue, or was that green eyes, seeing all the intelligence he knew her for and have read, he had always found her very attractive even from other moves she acted in and admired her roles in them, and now have her to do with as he pleases. He reached down, working her now unfettered breasts, tweaking, pulling slightly and leaving her aroused as she had ever been in her entire life. She knew then, looking up into lust-filled eyes, she was in for more than she bargained for, as nothing but just filled his eyes, not love but lust. That's fine, it makes this all the more better then, can't have a student falling in love now, can I? She pursed her lips, pulling back, sucking hard while controlling her breathing until her airways were clear enough to take a breath through her nose. Therein the suction only increased tenfold, her cheeks imploded as she sucked harder than she ever dreamed of before. All the way to his very tip where she kissed, a light suction then finally pulled back. I think it's time we get on with this, thank you, don't you think so, Kai? She said totally seriously. Kai smiled, then bent nearly double, his lips meeting hers in a passion-filled osculation, that broke rather suddenly when he slipped 2 fingers into her by sliding her lacy panties to the side while feeling a little tuft of hair at the very top and thrusting his fingers into her very moist, very reddened and aroused pussy and pumped a little. Yeah, he said, his lips working on hers, let's get this on the way. Besides bringing his fingers up to show her the slippery wetness, you seem ready. Oh God, never more so, she says while looking into his eyes with lust. Get up, he said softly. It wasn't so much a request, but nor was it an order. But she was glad to do it either way. Have I mentioned how much I just love your legs, Professor? He asked, eyeing her with appreciation. She then proceeded to show him a level of flexibility and lifted one up and over his shoulder and smoothed her thigh up clad in netting, making it look all the more tantalizing. He smiled, turning his head to kiss the inside of her thigh, her now standing proud, nearly losing her footing several times as he worked 2 fingers in her tightness and nearly unseating that world-class mastermind of hers several times. Long fucking fingers, she said, sounding deeply aroused. But I'd prefer your cock, give it to me, Kai, don't be a tease, she purred, nearly begged. He extracted his fingers, now dripping with her honey, and brought it to her mouth to suck on herself and then proceeded to kiss her, moving her legs so he could stand, then took her by a slender waist, turning her. She lifted a leg to the desk she had been sitting on. He keep eyeing her a moment. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 22, Chapter 22, R18 End. He reached down, running 2 fingers up a dripping pussy, making Jane shudder, nearly losing her footing. Kai, would you quit it? She drawled. Please, don't tease, it's been years for me, more so than you can imagine. Kai smirked playfully. Oh, my poor professor, all right then, your student shall help you feel much better, he said, lining himself up, and the immediate and effective shift of his hips that sheathed him into the beautiful ginger moist tightness in a single long stroke that nearly totally undid her. Ah! She cried out, going wide-eyed, holding her own leg to keep her upright as she fluttered and milked him hard. She'd never come on insertion before, but with Kai it was rather par for the course, but luckily women generally could take more than one orgasm. Jane was no different, despite how many loops ago it had been for her. No one since the 16th loop had actually fucked her with all the beast business going around, even with how long that had been. Fuck K, yes, she cried in a full-throated and above all else, satisfied tone of cry. Kai smiled. Much better, isn't it? He drawlingly purred at her. She half turned, holding her own hip to do so. No, not remotely, she said, those amazing eyes of hers burning for him. More, Kai, so much more is needed, and don't stop, she said, looking deep into those eyes that seemed to hold nothing except for the sarcastic view of life. Move. Kai smiled, curing his hands around the tops of shapely hips, and pulled her strongly back. A strangled cry escaped her lips, her eyes shooting wide. That kind of movement? He asked innocently as she fluttered and nearly lost her mind around his shaft. He was now coated in a fine layer of her honey, thicker with her orgasm, and absolutely loving the way she felt around him. She was very hot, extremely wet, and unusually tight, but he'd had a fancy she would be, and oddly he was rarely wrong about such things. He smoothed his hands up her body, held her breasts in his hands and pulled her upright, then thrust his hips in and upwards, sending her wide-eyed again before he pulled back sharply only to reverse his thrust and hammer into her with a level of force she greatly admired. Fuck, yes, she cried, like that Kai, yes like fucking that, she exulted and cried at the top of her lungs. She was beyond care and luckily a privacy spell was already casted on the room so it wasn't as if someone could walked in to check on the noise anyway. Kai was thoroughly enjoying himself anyway, so, nor would he. This was a woman he'd wanted from the moment he'd seen her in this world and when he watched Games of Thrones in which she placed Rose, and now he had her he was going to make sure she had the best sex of her numerous lives. He worked his hips grinding them hard against her tight ass, sending his cock as deep as he dare into her beguiling depths, making her shudder, work him hard and yet again cum her absolute brains out of her beautiful head as she reached a level of pleasure even her good sex life hadn't anticipated was possible. Oh yes, Kai, God, yes, so fucking good, she exalted to him, thinking him her new god for this. She had just instinctively known it would be good, but not this good. Harder, please, darling man, harder. Kai was only too happy to oblige. He pulled back, nearly leaving the enticing pussy of the blonde, his crown just swelling her entrance before sending his hips thrusting forward again. She arched back, her breasts thrust forward and tipped with dark red, incredibly hard nipples as her entire body tensed into intense pleasure. She pointed her toe a little on the desk, her legs shaping into a leg lover's dream. Kai couldn't resist, leaning into her just to run his hands up that enticing tone and definition, then arching his hips up and forwards again, deep into her depths, her core splaying around his girth, his crown leading the way to nearly breach her cervix. He was just that deep inside of her. His other hand reached up, holding her around the throat, leaning in and turning her head to lay a passion-filled kiss onto shapely lips she is only too happy to return with interest. She was the very vision of a sex-starved woman finally getting some. Her neck was flushed to between her pert breasts, each of them was tipped with a hardened nub of pale crinkled flesh. She was so wet that he was lathered in her textured juices and the tops of her thighs shined with it. Her mind was fuzzy for a change, but in a way she honestly adored him for doing to her what she never expected he'd be capable of with his age. Normally she was always thinking, always sharp and aware. Right then the only thing she was aware of was the way her body was singing his praises. I'm so fucking cut, she cried out as he once more sent her flying into the precipice of another mind-bendingly good orgasm, his cock still steely in her vacillating walls that clenched and milked his shaft like a thing possessed, and yet he easily held out on her as she ran the course of the biggest yet orgasm. She felt weak before his ability in this area, and yet appreciated him for it. She knew then she just might have to do this again, but she wouldn't hold her breath for it. This time it was just too much to bear for her, her body lagging on her as she lost her footing. A supremely strong arm wrapped around her, keeping her upright, then lifting her easily into his arms as he disentangled from her, a smirk on his face as she looked up from nestled in his arms, her entire world rocked and fading fast. She looked up into his eyes, regard, losing herself totally in that moment, especially the gentle care he had in those unreal eyes of his. You're done shaking like a leaf, Professor, he said, his tone playful. I think you need to sit down for a bit. Kai, she said, her tone a little raw from that last absolute screamer of an orgasm. Sorry I didn't make you come, she said, sincerely disappointed as it hasn't happened before. Oh no, Professor, believe me, this was a much appreciated thank you, he said with positivity. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 23, Teaching. It had been 2 days since the expulsion was cancelled and his little escapade with Jane Chatwin. Since then, Kai found himself spending more time away from the moody walls of Breakbulls and instead in the more chaotic, mismatched vibe of Julia's apartment, which was an odd blend of incense, research notes, and half-finished pizza boxes. Currently, Kai was perched on the couch, legs stretched out, fingers tapping the worn fabric as he watched Julia kneeling before a book, trying to perform a levitation spell. Slow and steady, Julia. Calm down, he said softly, his tone equal parts patient mentor and someone trying very hard not to laugh. He stood and moved closer, squatting beside her. His eyes locked with hers, low and warm. Somewhere inside of you is a well of power. You've done magic before, I can see it. You've felt it. Magic moving through you like a second heartbeat. Remember that feeling. Channel that intent, Julia. Make the world hear you. Then cast. Julia smiled suddenly. Kai blinked. What? You're good at this. Good at what? She shrugged with a playful tilt of her head. Teaching. Kai raised a brow. Hey. Guess I missed my calling as a sexy Hogwarts professor. His tone was teasing, but Julia chuckled, visibly more relaxed. She turned back to the book, took a breath, and focused. The edges of the book began to tremble. There it is, Kai said, eyes narrowing in approval. Speak to the world. Tell it what you want. Pour your feelings into the weave. Now cast. Julia's breathing slowed, her hands barely moved, eyes closed. The book floated, first an inch, then 2. When she opened her eyes and saw it suspended mid-air, she gasped. Holy shit! Kai grinned. Congratulations! Now lift one more. Julia's face fell. What? 1 week later. That's it, you're getting it, Kai said, his voice softer than usual. It had been a busy week. Between his daily back and forths to breakbills, ongoing magical evaluations, and dodging the expulsion watch list, he'd somehow found time to become Julia's personal tutor. His own breakbills discipline results? Same as Quentin's inconclusive. Well, Kai mused to himself as he leaned back in the kitchen chair, watching her focus intently. For a siphoner with a unique magical signature, pinning down a discipline might be like trying to label a shapeshifter's favorite face. Besides, there were other issues. Like the incident with the 2 students at the Van Pelt fountain. The entire zone was now sealed off, the faculty whispering words like residual psychic damage and containment breach. Nothing too exciting. His gaze returned to Julia, cross-legged in front of her desk, hands hovering over a glass cup and a wet handkerchief. She was chanting softly. Le lames coligo. Ad me gluttily. Le lames coligo. Ad me gluttily. Tiny droplets began to separate from the fabric, floating delicately toward the cup. She'd come far, Kai thought. Like, disturbingly far for a week. Marina of course was covering the gesture magic. And Kai? Well, he took over with what he called TVD magic, which was intent-driven. And Julia was the perfect asterisk. Student. Genius-level IQ, hyper-focused, naturally curious, and equipped with an oddly applicable logic for magic. Probably the damn loops, Kai thought with a smirk. Groundhog Day makes for a killer SAT score. She didn't just listen when he spoke to her, she absorbed every information, every incantation, every shift of intent and every bit of nuance he delivered. And best of all? He only had to explain something once. She'd already mastered levitation and incendia, the fire-starting spell. That one was ridiculous, he recalled. I show her once and boom, living flamethrower. Could have roasted a turkey with that first attempt. Kai leaned forward, watching her now. Steady. The droplets accelerated. Her focus sharpened. This spell's delicate. It trains precision and patience. 2 things most magicians lack. He smirked. Also helps in collecting evidence, he added, tone dry. Julia glanced at him mid-cast, the liquid still funneling into the cup. Her eyes met his steady, determined with a sparkling look. Kai almost gulped. Damn. He kept his voice calm, pleasant, and unintrusive. Self-casting is nearly impossible for most casters. Dangerous, too. Healing, enhancements, it's usually done to you, not by you. You need extreme control, or you'll end up incinerating your eyebrows. Julia tilted her head. What about rituals? Kai snorted. Yeah, not gonna happen anytime soon, Jules. Rituals are advanced, complex, often dangerous. Not for, he made a sweeping gesture, you, not yet. Then she grinned. And with that grin, all the liquid ripped from the handkerchief and splashed into the glass like a victorious mic drop. She looked smug. Kai's eyebrows shot up. Show off. He grinned. Talking and casting. Flex much. I gotta admit, he added, crossing his arms, it's a bloody shock that in just a week you're where most would be after years of work. Even I. He paused. Well, not exactly true, but hey. Let the girl have her moment. You didn't have you to teach you, Julia said with a small laugh. You're a very good teacher, Kai. Kai tilted his head, half grinning. Why thank you, Jules. His sarcasm was light and playful, though something about her voice had stuck with him. He checked the time. Gotta head back to break bills. I'll be back soon. Julia stood, her simple loose t-shirt and yoga pants brushing as she moved. Her hair fell around her shoulders, and those damn eyes, the kind that could drag kingdoms to war, looked at him. Oh. Okay. It was quiet. But, not just quiet. Disappointed? Kai caught that. I'll see you later, Jules. Then, with a teasing tone, say hi to James for me. As he stepped out of her apartment, he mulled over that last look. Maybe I should ask her about the tattoo. And the hedge witches. But, if she's not saying anything, I'm not dragging it out. He pulled his coat tighter and disappeared down the hallway. 1 week down. One mind sharpened. And a whole lot more coming. Patreon/Freedozy. Chapter 24, Chapter 24, Freed Them. Kai blurred through the night, as nothing but a whisper of motion and shadow as he sped toward the outskirts of town. Draped across his shoulder was a limp body who was unconscious, bruised and very much undeserving of mercy Kai had showed him. Damned scumbag, Kai thought bitterly, eyes narrowed against the cold wind. You got off easy. Could have just drained you dry and dumped you in a ditch, but no. I'm feeling generous today. He arrived at the docks, which was quiet, fog-laced, and looked seemingly empty. In the middle of a barren concrete yard, he stopped and exhaled sharply. Then, concentrating before he muttered under his breath. In a flicker of shimmering light, a warehouse rippled into existence. Invisible until then, cloaked by an invisic spell, an illusionary spell, a speciality or the Gemini Coven lineage, it stood quietly, seemingly abandoned. Which made it perfect for activities like this. And incredibly easy to cast, Kai noted with faint amusement. Maybe I'll teach it to Julia next. Or maybe something fun, like a boundary spell perhaps. That'd keep the rats out or in depending on the use. He stepped into the warehouse. 6 other bodies lay inside, bound, unconscious, and eerily silent. Each one was a carefully selected piece in tonight's little performance. Kai dropped the newest edition unceremoniously onto the concrete. The thud echoed. Scumbags, he muttered, brushing his hands off. I'm doing you lot a favor. Most people I don't like don't get this far. They just bleed out and become nothing but a snack. The man stirred with a groan. His eyes fluttered open, wild and confused. What the hell? Where am I? Who the hell are you? Kai crouched beside him, his tone mock gentle. Well, I'm just the guy who saved another woman from getting raped last night by the despicable Bile in front of me. I have to say though, there are a lot of your kind here in New York, which I don't know is kinda surprising. Is it always like this here with people just going around and attempting to do unspeakable things to others? The man's eyes widened. Panic replaced confusion. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, don't do that, Kai said, the soft smile still on his lips. I hate liars, bad ones I mean. What do you want? Kai stood, stretching lazily. Oh, I want a lot of things. But right now? I need you for a little experiment. Nothing lethal. He glanced back at the other bodies. Well, not at first. The man began to squirm harder. My friends will come looking for me, asshole. You're dead. Kai snorted. Your friends. He snapped his fingers, releasing the enchanted sleep spell with a crackling pulse. All 6 men began to stir. Groaning, blinking into consciousness, then quickly devolving into frantic panic as they realized they were bound and trapped. Kai walked to the center of the room, hands behind his back like a teacher addressing a classroom. Children, please may I have your attention? One of them, a stockier guy with a voice louder than his common sense, shouted, I got rights, you freak. You can't do this. Kai appeared in front of him in a blur. Before anyone could register the movement, his fangs sank deep into the man's neck. The others screamed, one vomited and another fainted as the man's thrashing limbs stilled and his body slumped and lost consciousness but wasn't dead. Kai pulled back, blood dripping from his chin, his eyes glowing bright and monstrous. Veins bulged under them like black lightning bolts across porcelain skin. So, does anyone else want to tell me about their rights? His voice dripped with false charm. The others shook their heads violently. Good. Kai smiled again, sharp and sweet like cyanide. Now then. I'm here to conduct a little test. Nothing fancy. Just a blend of 2 components. You're helping advance magical research, gentlemen. A noble cause. With a gesture of his hand, 7 small cups appeared in front of them, filled with thick red liquid. The invisic that had hidden them dissolved. Drink, he said. What is it? One of them, a scrawny 20-something, asked, trembling. Kai grinned. Something that'll set you free. The scrawny one downed it. Kai tilted his head. Nothing, yet. The others, fearing a worse fate, gulped theirs too. As the last one finished, Kai clapped lightly. There we are. But before they could breathe relief, the first man, his earlier victim, began to stir again, groaning, and tried holding his neck. Then Kai moved. In the blink of an eye, each man had his neck snapped before he could stand. One by one, crack, 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 the sound echoed in brutal staccato across the warehouse. Only one remained, the very first. Still weak, still stunned. He looked up in horror. Kai crouched again, blood still trailing down the side of his mouth. Well then. I've freed them. He smiled. From their lives, of course. The last man screamed as Kai Vamp sped forward. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 25, Chapter 25, Hunt a Niffin. When Kai returned to the physical kid's cottage, the first thing he noticed was the front door, or more precisely, the absence of one. The entire thing had been blown clear off its hinges and now rested in 2 jagged halves on the grass outside like fallen pieces of an exorcised demon. Kai raised a brow. Ah yes, he thought wryly, stepping over the splinters, that should be Caddy. Inside, the air smelled of fireball whiskey, burnt wood, and general poor decisions. On the main couch, lounging like they had just survived a magical apocalypse, which, to be fair, was not far from the truth, sat Caddy, Quinton, and Elliot, all with glasses in hand. Celebration or funeral? Kai asked dryly, eyeing the drinks. Elliot was the first to respond, swirling his glass like a seasoned noble. Neither. Just another Tuesday in magical college where your entire existence is in jeopardy and the only viable cure is copious alcohol. Touché, Kai muttered. Caddy gave him a half-lidded look. Where the hell have you been? Oh, you know, Kai said with a casual shrug. A little clean-up, a little testing. Here and there. He made his way toward them, gesturing toward the bottle in Elliot's hand. May I? Elliot stood up and theatrically poured him a glass. Only because you look like you've had a night. Kai took the drink and settled down. The moment felt oddly relaxed. He swirled the amber liquid, watching the reflection of firelight shimmer inside. Question, he said after a beat. Does it make you a bad person if you do something bad, to bad people? Quentin blinked. Wow! That's unexpected. Catty, her voice slower with drink, said, depends. How bad are we talking? Muggers? Thugs? Rapists? Katie's tone turned ice cold. Oh yeah. Definitely those ones. Karma should bring a freight train on them. Elliot nodded. If you're the karma train, I say choo-choo, baby. Quentin raised his glass. Cheers to not feeling guilty for once, he mumbled and slumped back. Kai merely smiled into his drink. Exactly, he thought. Why feel guilty, hey? Dash. Later, Kai received a message from Quentin to meet him at the library. He arrived to find both Quentin and Alice already deep in conversation. As he approached the end of the corridor leading into the dimly lit library chamber, he heard Alice's voice. So I found a spell that can transmutate certain metaquantum energies into matter, in theory. Kai stepped into view. Magic. If that magic would burn you alive and turn you into the very thing you're trying to transmute. Both Alice and Quentin turned sharply, startled. Kai tilted his head toward Alice, expression unreadable. Niffin, Alice. Alice narrowed her eyes. What are you doing here? Kai glanced at Quentin, then back. Just in here for a little read. Also happened to overhear a very familiar voice on the verge of concluding something bordering on suicide. Alice crossed her arms. You don't know it'll fail. Kai mirrored her posture. And how exactly are you going to achieve this miraculous transmutation? I'm going to combine it with an advanced transformation ritual, Alice said sharply. Kai gave a slow, sardonic nod. And how do you plan to keep the Niffin still during this ritual? You know, assuming it doesn't feel like giving up all that power willingly. Quentin chimed in, hesitant but firm. He's right, Alice. This is major arcana. Alice stood, her tone sharp. Oh, just because you couldn't do it. She turned to Kai. And if this is too advanced for you, maybe sit down and let the grown-ups talk. Kai laughed. Oh, sweetheart, you couldn't even begin to understand what advanced magic really looks like. Quentin stepped forward, frustrated. Alice, you're making this up as you go along, and it's dangerous. Kai nodded in agreement. He's right. It's not a matter of talent, it's a matter of recklessness. You're both so sanctimonious, Alice snapped. She pointed at Quentin, barely knew what magic was a few months ago. And she jabbed at Kai, learned a fraction of real magic from ordinaries who got lucky with research work, forums, and side comments. Kai's eyes glinted dangerously. Be that as it may, we can both see this is absurd. Quentin said softly, I don't understand why you can't see that. You're one of the most brilliant magicians I know, but this is too much. Alice grabbed her bag. Fine, stay. I'll do it myself. She began packing furiously. I came here to find out what happened to Charlie. And now I have a chance. I'm taking it. Kai sighed. Fine, wait. He rubbed his forehead before continuing. I can help. I can create a boundary spell to contain the Niffin long enough for you to try whatever this is. But I'm not certain it'll hold long enough. Niffins are unpredictable. Alice zipped her bag, eyes focused. It'll hold. Quentin, meanwhile, picked up the enchanted box where Charlie's Niffin was contained, eyeing it warily. Kai's gaze lingered on it, too interested, curious. Then, with a quiet nod, he followed after them. Time to go Niffin hunting, I guess, he thought. with the Niffin though I wonder. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 26, Chapter 26, Bound. So we're here, Quentin said, glancing around the fountain clearing as moonlight glistened across its surface. Okay, wait, where's Kai? I don't know, Alice replied. He said he wanted to go get the boundary component, but we've arrived. This is where it happened. She stepped forward, her voice rising in quiet invocation. Place of his transformation, present yourself. A pause. There's a third step. Unseen by either of them, hidden behind the thicket just beyond the clearing, Kai stood motionless beneath an invisic spell, the Gemini cloaking spell that rendered him invisible to sight, magical or mundane. Right on cue, he thought, eyeing the subtle distortion of energy now condensing within the area. So, if I were to snack on its magic, would I even get full of it? How much raw wellspring magic can a body which is immortal absorb before something goes pop? Then he heard something. Alice. Singing. Won't you come see about me? Kai blinked. Seriously? Is that breakfast club? Just as he was thinking to himself, the air shifted. He felt it first as a tremble in his bones, a density in the weave of magic nearby. Then he saw it. A shimmer by a tree, a crumpled figure hunched down, smoke rolling off his skin like he had been set aflame from the inside out. Well, well, well. Kai muttered under his breath. Look who finally crawled out of the furnace. It was Charlie. Or, what used to be. Kai watched as Alice spotted him too and gasped. Charlie? Charlie, is that you? The figure lifted his face. Alice. Oh my God, it's really you. I missed you so much I don't even know what to say, she whispered, stepping closer, hand extended. But the moment their hands met. Ack! Alice recoiled, her palm sizzling with magic. You're hurting me, Charlie. Kai Vamp sped into the clearing, cancelling the invisic as he appeared beside her, his hand intercepting Charlie's mid-grasp. A sudden hum surged through the space where their hands met. Kai's palm glowed red, absorbing the volatile, crackling essence. His eyes widened slightly. Ah, shit! That's quite a reserve. Alice screamed, what are you doing? Stop! Kai, face tight with seriousness, said, back off, Alice. Now. No. He didn't mean it, he's just confused. That moment of distraction was all it took. Charlie broke free, eyes igniting blue as he threw Kai away with a burst of telekinesis. The heretic slammed into a tree, cracking bark and staggering upright. But Charlie couldn't move forward. He looked down, his feet were surrounded by a glowing white salt circle, thrumming with a magical charge. Quentin noticed. Alice, look! The hell? Alice whispered. Salt boundary spell, Kai said as he rejoined them. Drawn and powered with intent. Meant to hold specific entities. He glanced at the Niffin, narrowed his eyes. Specifically made for you. Alice looked horrified. No, let him go. He's scared. Kai turned sharply toward her. That is not Charlie anymore, Alice. That's a magical singularity wearing his face. She shook her head. You don't get to decide that. And in her panic, she blew apart a segment of the boundary with a burst of raw magic. Everything moved fast. The Niffin teleported, appearing before Quentin, knocking the Niffin box from his hands and grabbing him by the throat. Q. Alice screamed. Kai was already moving. A quick sequence of cast and he casted a maiming spell. Charlie's knee shattered with a crack, forcing him to drop Quentin. Kai Vamp sped again, grabbed a nearby branch, hardened it with a structural chant, and impaled Charlie's other leg, but the Niffin disappeared again in a burst of blue fire. On the steps behind them, Alice spotted him. I can help you, Charlie. Please listen to me. She began chanting rapidly, her hand glowing ominously blue. Quentin shouted, "Alice, stop! You're going to kill yourself!" Kai ignored them both. He stood firm and began his own incantation. Imperium Monstrum. Magical barrier contained the Niffin as the containment spell took place. Kai moved fast, standing directly in front of Alice just as her casting hand started to turn blue with magical burn. He reached out and grabbed her wrist. Her palm glowed red, heat intensifying as he absorbed the excess energy. "No, don't, please stop. I can do this," she cried. Kai's grip tightened, absorbing the wild magic streaming out of her. "You're killing yourself," he said coldly. Then, nodding to Quentin, Kai gave the signal. Quentin raised the box again, chanting, "Sini Balamak." The box glowed with a violent, flickering light. "No!" Alice screamed. "No, no, no!" Kai held her firmly as she tried to break free. "Sini Balamak!" Quentin shouted again. Light erupted. Charlie's Niffin form collapsed into pure blue energy, as it was drawn into the box in a stream of glittering, agonized sparks. The moment it was done, Quentin dropped the box, exhausted. Kai finally released Alice's wrist. Alice stared at him in disbelief. You brought the box." "It was for the best," Kai said calmly. Quentin added gently, "He was going to kill you." Alice turned on them both, eyes wide with betrayal. "Why did you think you had to save me?" She stared straight at Kai. "How could you?" Kai's tone sharpened like a blade. "Between you alive or dead, Alice, it was an easy choice." Then, with a voice cold and serious, "But if you want to die so badly, I recommend a knife. At least be honest about what this was, it was suicide, and you knew it." Alice's lip trembled. "Fuck you." She turned to Quentin. "Fuck you too, Q. Neither of you had any idea what I was doing." "Oh yeah." Kai stepped forward. "Well, neither did you, Alice. You weren't close. The only thing you were close to was becoming a Niffin." Silence. Then Kai looked to Quentin. "You know what? I'm out of here. Good night." Alice, quietly as she turned away, "It was my choice." She stormed off into the night, leaving only Quentin and the glowing Niffin box behind. After a long pause, Quentin exhaled and turned to pick up the box, but it was gone. He froze, scanning the area. "Kai," he called. No response. The Niffin box had vanished. Patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 27, Chapter 27, Boss. Blood bags littered the floor, some torn open, others still intact but slowly thawing. The sterile scent of plastic mixed with something much older, richer, and more primal. Larry stared at the red liquid staining his fingers, his eyes wide with dawning horror. This wasn't normal. Nothing about this was. He could still hear the ragged breathing of the others: Julius, Tom, Michael, John, Devon, and Travis, all of them caught in the same surreal moment of realization of what they've all just done. They had drunk it, they had all drunk blood. Human blood. Larry shook his head, trying to piece together how they'd gotten here. They'd woken up on the floor of some run-down warehouse, bound, maybe drugged, and disoriented. When they came to, the binds were gone, but the hunger that soon followed was simply unbearable. Not the kind that gnawed at your stomach, although this did as well, but it was deeper than that. It screamed through their muscles and bones, pulsed in their skulls like a wasp's nest rattling behind the eyes. Tom had been the first to crack. He had groaned, pressing his palms against his temples. "That buzzing, make it stop, I swear." And then, he ran. Straight to the table where there were bags with red liquid inside of them. "Why are there blood bags here?" They had watched, speechless, as he tore one open with shaking hands and drank. Not sipped, or taste, oh no, he drank it greedily like a starving beast. And then, it happened. His eyes turned bloodshot, the whites devoured by crimson. Thick black veins spider-webbed beneath his skin. His fangs, unmistakable and sharp, descended like the jaws of a predator. He laughed a low, guttural sound that chilled everyone to the marrow. Then Julius followed. Then Michael. Then Larry's own legs moved on their own. The moment the blood touched his tongue, his throat, his soul, it was divine. It wasn't just the hunger that was satisfied. It felt like it was an awakening. Everything became sharpened. The air buzzed with electricity, the world itself expanded into terrifying clarity. Every molecule of light seemed alive. And then he laughed. But out of joy or madness. He did so just because it felt right. That was hours ago, or minutes. Time had become slippery. But now, as he blinked and returned to the present, Larry realized they were all different. Faster, stronger, sharper. They could hear things they shouldn't, smell things beyond walls of the warehouse. They weren't human anymore, or at least didn't feel like they were one. They'd tried to leave only to find themselves trapped inside. Every window, every door, sealed by an invisible wall. Like a blanket cast on reality itself to keep them inside. John, the loudest among them, the "I know my rights" guy, had tried to climb the old wooden stairs to find another exit. He slipped. Fell straight down onto a jagged piece of machinery. It impaled him. A full-on metal spike through the chest. Did he scream? Oh yes, quite loudly too. But did he die? Not even close. John didn't die, he healed when they got him off the machine. Bones cracking back into place, flesh knitting together like melted wax cooling. That's when it hit all of them. They couldn't die. Larry backed away from the blood bags, panting, when suddenly. You know that bag wouldn't just pop up and answer all your questions, right? The voice echoed like silk soaked in sin. They all froze, heads whipping around. Then, with the shimmering sound effect being peeled away, Kai dropped his invisibility spell, stepping casually out of the shadows like he'd been watching the entire time. He grinned at them with his hands in his pockets. Well, that was fun. Watching the kids discover their new talents and all. Bravo, he clapped once, mockingly. So, how do you like the gift I've given you? Larry blinked. What the hell did you do to us, man? Kai tilted his head, blinking slowly as if Larry had just asked him how to boil water. Vampire. Genius, he said dryly. I turned you into vamps. Welcome to the exclusive club. He sighed dramatically. Jesus. Grown men, and you still have the IQ of a garden earthworm. What the F, you did this against our will, Tom muttered. Kai looked at him. Wow, the hypocrisy, isn't that what you lot do at night though, go out there and harassing people against their will, but hey, let's not point fingers. How are you all feeling, gentlemen? Eyesight sharper? Hearing clearer? Oh, what about the overwhelming urge to rip open a deer and bathe in its warmth? John had heard enough. He sprinted toward Kai in a blur. Kai just raised an eyebrow. In a blink, Kai snatched John mid-lunge by the neck. The others barely saw the movement. Kai looked amused. Now I know you didn't just try to attack me. He brought John close, eyes glowing red with black veins faintly. Did you? He said, voice dangerously low. Speak. Tom, from the back, I don't think he can. You're kind of, you know, choking him. Oh, Kai blinked. Right. Hat. My bad. Snap. He broke John's neck like it was a pretzel and casually dropped the body. There. He should take a nap to cool off. The others gasped. Larry stepped back instinctively. Kai dusted his jacket and looked around with a bright smile. Now, for a formal introduction. He spread his arms wide. My name is Kai. Or, as you will all be addressing me from now on. He grinned, fangs gleaming. boss. And check out my new story Sukuna on ATG on my Patreon. patreon.com/FredoZY. Chapter 28, Chapter 28, Upgrade, or Not. 2 nights had passed since Kai's orientation session, and the warehouse now felt like a grim dormitory, metal cots, drained blood bags, and 7 uneasy new vampires pacing its stained concrete. Kai, meanwhile, kept one eye on his phone waiting for Quentin's inevitable slide into that slumber spell coma. He had been waiting for the past 2 days and nothing happened yet, which made Kai think maybe Julia wouldn't do something drastic and the other on his newest project. Kai stood at the center, swirling a blood bag lazily in his hand like it was wine. He had just returned from another session with Julia, his favorite student, and though she performed well, he could feel something simmering beneath her controlled expression. Her tight smile yesterday told him she was furious and pissed off at Quentin, no doubt, but she was hiding it well. The stars kept increasing on her arm, proof she'd risen fast in the hedge witch ranks. Still not telling me she's part of the hedges, he thought. Whatever. If she wants to play that game, fine. I just hope she doesn't make the same mistake she did in the original timeline. But, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, right? Fine. He'd deal with that later. Right now, he needed test subjects. His eyes wandered to the center of the room, where Larry finally spoke up. Why haven't you let us go? Larry asked, stepping forward cautiously. And why can't we even leave when the damn door is open? Kai's grin was lazy. On the risk of sounding like a broken radio, you can't leave yet. I'm running a little experiment seeing how 2 external components blend in one vessel. And you, Larry, are one of those lucky components. He kept strolling. The warehouse door stood open behind him, but not one of them moved to exit. Kai glanced back with a grin. Compulsion, he thought, amused. Ah, the joy of being an original. None of them even remember I compelled them not to leave. Makes the show so much more fun.